Welcome along to OTB AM. Those of you who are awake, a lot of people I think still taking the time off until Monday. Not me and Micheal Verney. We're in studio this morning on OTB AM. Over the next couple of hours we're going to go through all the sports news and a little bit more what's going to happen this weekend. We're going to discuss an issue that's very, very close to Micheal Verney's heart. I think it might actually be an exclusive this morning. His first time to talk about this and openly reveal his thoughts on a very, very deep subject. You can Chromecast this show or watch on Apple TV or your smart TV. Do you know what I'm on about, actually?
I have an idea, yeah.
I have an idea. You can subscribe to the OTB AM podcast. It's fully timestamped, making it easy to find exactly what you want every morning's 2-hour show. And remember, OTB AM is Ireland's first and only breakfast show. We upload all our best bits to YouTube. Micheal, welcome.
Johnny, how are you?
The BDO darts. They've only gone and moved it from the lakeside.
It's a disaster. It's already a disaster. They've only 15% of tickets sold, and they've already cut the female prize money from 20 grand to 8 grand. And Fallon Sherrock, who was one of the stars of the PDC,
hang on a second, to win it, you get 8 grand.
8,000, yeah. Now, up until a couple of years ago, it was only 5 grand. So in comparable terms, it has improved. But 20 grand to 8 grand means they've already lost her, who would have been a standout star. She's actually never won the BDO women's title. She's never even been in a final, to the best of my knowledge. And yet she was one of the breakout stars of the PDC World Championship. But her pulling out now is an absolute disaster. They sent an email around last week saying they moved from the lakeside in Frimley Green in Surrey, which is an iconic venue.
It's been there for 30 odd years, something like that?
Yeah, at least, yeah. And that was like the home of World Darts. The home of World Darts.
No score.
23.
23.
But it's not there anymore. It's a strange one. And I think they bumped up the ticket prices a lot.
And they moved it to some Ponce Arena that's sponsored by...
I think it's the O2. And they've only 15% of tickets sold at the moment. So like, if it was in the lakeside, tickets, I tried to get them before, tickets are sold nearly a year in advance.
Really?
Yeah.
Because it's a small venue.
Small enough venue, intimate kind of venue.
And people are buzzing after watching the PDC, and they want to get a bit of darts in, so they want to go now, but like people aren't biting.
Yeah, the crowd that goes to normally goes to the BDO would not usually be a PDC audience. It's not.
It's like an anti.
It's not a raucous audience. It's not like people falling around drinking or anything like that. It's genuinely just, I always say, it's good, wholesome family entertainment.
It's like when the snooker is on, or the knowledgeable Crucible crowd. The lakeside crowd or the knowledgeable lakeside crowd.
Yeah, but the knowledgeable Crucible crowd. But
they know that double will win them the...
Yeah, they know that because they have an earpiece in their ear that's telling them that this is frame ball.
You love the snooker as well.
Yeah, going over with my father actually this year now, looking forward to it. I was there last year and was there a couple of years ago as well. It's brilliant, yeah. The most relaxing sporting environment of them all. I've had a few sleeps in there, I won't lie.
During the game?
Unbelievably relaxing, yeah. But it's unbelievable venue too.
Micheal would obviously be most known for covering Gaelic games and racing in the Irish Independent, but he is a bit of a discerning weirdo in terms of your other sporting interests.
I have absolutely no problem in admitting that.
Yeah. I remember when I was a kid, we only had 2 channels for the early years, and then when we got in like very, very hazy BBC, I remember watching highlights of Liverpool playing in the FA Cup around about the time that they lost a sequence of FA Cup games against lower league opposition under Graham Souness. So what are we talking, like early 90s? But you were particularly wedded to the terrestrial channels and whatever they showed, be that low grade darts,
bowls on BBC,
snooker, or even a bit of wrestling.
Yeah, loved the wrestling. I remember the wrestling being on ITV years ago. I remember watching half of a WWE pay-per-view. Do you remember Channel 5 and 6 on the old, the 12 box, and it used to kind of flick like that.
Yeah.
You could kind of half understand what was going on. I remember watching nearly a full pay-per-view on that one time. Only seen half a picture, but that's what you did, like. And I would still kind of stick to, not to those channels, but I'd be very kind of traditional, I suppose, in what I watch outside of wrestling.
Yeah, the darts, like, would you get buzzed up about the PDC now? No, that's mad. So it's almost like League of Ireland fans who wouldn't watch the Premier League.
Yeah, I don't have the channels. I don't have Sky, so I wouldn't. I can't watch it. Whereas when it was on BBC or when it was on Channel 4, that's like for the 10 days or whatever, 9 days that it's on, you'd be watching it religiously. You get kind of you get trained into these things. You watch what you have, and you maybe get more enjoyment of what you have, and what you don't have, you don't really realise how good it is.
You're a teetotal man. What you've never tried, you don't miss.
Yeah,
is
I'm
it?
kind of happy enough that I don't drink, to be honest.
Yeah, I think you're probably better off. But is there anyone to look out for? Because Ted Hankey and them characters, are they still knocking around?
Ted Hankey actually went to the PDC. I'm not too sure if he came back. This the mad thing.
He just had a good time, or
he could have came back. I don't know. He didn't get much good. He didn't get much joy in the PDC. There wouldn't be that many that did. Verney obviously won a world title.
That's right. Yeah.
Glenn Durrant, who won the BDO. Well, it's just last year, I suppose. Now he's won. I think he's won the last 3. He went to the PDC and is in on the Premier League already. So that just shows you, like, people that rag on the BDO, people love to rag on the BDO, and that clip will go around and it'll be viral again this week where, I forget the guy's name, he's an Australian thrower, threw 5, and it was like the worst leg of darts ever thrown, and everyone will start sharing it this week and saying how crap the BDO is. But like, BDO looks after a demographic in darts that no one else does, amateur darts. And women's darts would, not saying it wouldn't exist, but it definitely would not be at the level it's at now if the BDO hadn't invested in it.
That's a fair point, because it is like any conversation I would have with the lads who'd kind of be mocking it, because the standard is obviously much lower, but this was where it all began, and I suppose it was a bit like the Premier League now to people is totally different to the sort of working class game that it was before Sky came in, maybe in the 80s and 90s, where you could more relate to it, and you know, it was most people who went to the games were locals, whereas now if you go to a Liverpool game, it seems to be like 50% non-nationals almost.
Yeah,
Man
it's all
United
been jazzed up so much, and the
globalised.
The PDC is so in your face. Like, the BDO is the exact opposite of that now. I'm not too sure what to expect this year now, because morale could be pretty low, given that there's been cuts and financial, payouts aren't going to be as big. But it's still always one of the highlights of the year for me.
Just on Fallon Sherrock then, like, we've seen women's sport is going to explode. Obviously, we've seen it was a great year for women's football, and obviously the crowds at the women's Gaelic game finals have gone really
savage.
Yeah,
broke records last 2 years. Yeah,
it's great, and I think a lot of female sports fans can really embrace something that kind of hasn't like lived up to its potential anywhere near that yet, and this is kind of our sport that we can grow, and it's it's something that I think will help maybe young girls as well stay in sport that like start off but then fall away in their teens or whatever. But Fallon Sherrock, like, what could this do for darts in that she's competing against, like, Rachel Blackmore is competing against males? What could her sort of explosion onto the scene do for women's darts, or will it ever be cool, I suppose?
Well, there was a Japanese world champion last year in the BDO, a women's world champion, who threw a 3-dart average above 90 in the final and beat Lisa Ashton, who was, I think she was going for 3-0. She's class. Her name, I think it's Mizuku Suzuki or something. She came out to Baby Shark, which I just thought was the greatest thing of all time.
Wow.
It's just pure, like, cringy as anything, but I just thought it was deadly. The funny thing about darts and snooker, I think it is only a matter of time before there becomes some kind of parity in darts and snooker in particular, because there's no physical advantages that males have over females really in either of those two
I'm
sports.
not sure about that, Michael.
There's no, okay, I'll put it in comparison to soccer, to Gaelic, to hurling. The physical advantages aren't as stark, shall we say, so there shouldn't be as big of a disparity between the two.
A bit like racing.
Yeah, to some extent, yeah. It's a closed skill where you're in total control, particularly darts. You're in total control of your 3 darts. The
darts, fair enough. In snooker, maybe, like, when you want to get proper power into your shots, maybe there's a slight difference there.
Maybe a small bit, yeah. But they are kind of catching up on it. But they would have only been seen as recreational kind of hobbies maybe up until recently. Whereas now, Fallon Sherrock, Lisa Ashton, and these types are like dedicating their lives to darts, and they're starting to close the gap massively. Rachel Blackmore in racing is phenomenal. Like, you go through her 2019, it's mad, and tactically and technically she's so good.
Well, how could you explain that to people who don't follow racing? You and I are there more or less every day, and to see, an amateur rider who looked off her head to even become a pro in the first place, she wasn't getting anywhere as an amateur, and now she's like basically a consistent top 3 jockey in terms of grade 1s this season. I don't think anyone has more grade 1s in 2019 than her from an Irish perspective.
There's a great story in the Irish horse racing yearbook. Patrick Mullins, who lives with her, did an interview with her, or she reluctantly did an interview with him. But at the end of the piece, she recalls a story where she rang up a Cheltenham Festival winning trainer and a Grade 1 winning trainer and asked, it didn't actually say whether it was a he or a she, but they asked them, did they have a ride sorted for the bumper? Did they have someone sorted? And he or she said, oh, I don't. Who have you got, Rachel? And she was like, she was asking for herself. And that just kind of shows as well, I suppose, how far she has come in such a short space of time. What she's done, particularly in the last, 12 to 18 months, has been phenomenal. She nearly always has a horse
in the right place,
the right spot, always in contention. It's rarely you say, geez, Rachel left it too much to do. She nearly always has it in the right spot, and she's stronger, as strong, if not stronger, than any male jockey that I've ever seen. In a finish as well. She's rarely beaten in a finish.
I disagree with you on that, but I don't think it says. I think strength in a finish. I think strength in a finish is one of the most overrated things about jockeys. Rachel's perfectly good in a finish, but it's what she does elsewhere in races where horses just behave for her in the greater part of the race.
I'll put it this way: she's never found wanting in a finish.
No more than yourself. 7:46 on Friday morning. Here's what's coming up on today's show. We're going to talk a bit of the sports pages very shortly. Then Adam Lallana at 8:05, followed by Kenny Cunningham. Obviously, Adam Lallana, speculation as to his future. We've a really packed show this morning. 8:25 or thereabouts. David Meyler with Nathan Murphy talking about the what's going on in the Premier League, and after Liverpool's big win last night, extended their lead. At 8:35, we have sports news with Tom Malone. Rugby with Ruaidhri O'Connor. That would be Michael's Irish Independent ally. GAA with Verney at 9:05. Sounds a bit ominous.
Yeah, it does,
Who knows what that entails.
I don't really know much about it, John.
And, Deal or No Deal with Phil Egan at 9:15. But now it is time for the papers. Do you want to start there, Michael? What's been taking your eye on the Friday morning?
Yeah, realistically, all the talk in the GAA world yesterday was about what looks like the impending exit of Colin McShane, going from the Tyrone fold. And just on the back of our own paper, Sean McGoldrick had a good story everyone was talking about. It's the Brisbane Lions. It seems to be the Brisbane Lions, but it looks like the Adelaide Crows are in for him as well, which just shows the interest that's out there for him and the interest that's potentially out there for a lot of other kind of GAA players as well.
Yeah, we actually had Arthur O'D did a piece on this yesterday about the players that have left the game. Are you more worried about the players that have left? Say McShane is leaving for a reason that makes perfect sense, but the players that are leaving for sort of more tenuous reasons, in that I don't think the commitment and what it entails is attractive enough over the course of a year for them to just live normal lives, and I think that must be a factor with some players.
I'd be seriously worried, Johnny, genuinely. I'm not sure where we're going to be in 10 years' time, particularly with, in inverted commas, weaker counties where it's hard to see any huge success on the horizon or silverware or anything like that. That piece that Arthur did, and there's been a few other different pieces done where when you actually see it written down on paper, all the people that aren't involved, it's very, very worrying. There's lads who are ultra committed
just
to the
those
cause.
Four there as well.
Yeah. Like Michael Quinlivan.
You're talking about fairly top counties here as well.
Yeah. Like Michael Quinlivan gone from Tipperary, basically the fulcrum of their attack. Donny Kingston and his brother Paul gone from Laois.
One of the best players for Laois.
Yeah, they're two best players in full forward line. Orr McNeil is just his second year topped out with Donegal, and I think that's Peter Cook with Galway. Like they're all high profile players. Gary Brennan with Clare, Darragh McVitie, Conor Mina, Killian Clark with Cavan. Like these counties are going to struggle to really operate at anything like the same level as they did in the previous year without these guys. Dublin could afford to be missing a player, and they can bring it. It's like it was like the Kilkenny team in the mid-noughties. Someone was out, someone else came in. It wasn't that big of a deal. But once you go down beyond Division 1, you go to 2, 3 and 4, if you're missing your big player, you're not going to write off the year, but it's going to be very, very difficult.
And it's also, I suppose, it's demotivating for the players that are there when they know that as hard as it was, I have to train here for 6 hard months for even less of a reward in all likelihood.
Yeah, and I was only thinking about, say, Gary Brennan opted out with Clare. Gary Brennan, one of them, I know him from college in UL, one of the most committed, dedicated players. Clare's best player, maybe Clare's best footballer ever, maybe, and definitely over the last 15 years, their most important player. I can only imagine what was going through Colin Collins' head when Gary told him that he wasn't opting in for 2020.
Probably not friendly.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking stuff. I'm sure Colin Collins will never admit it, and he's tried to make Clare a lot more sustainable and not relying on one player. But
at
that's
the same
hard
time.
to take. It's hard to take.
The back of the Sun, McShane sailing, which is obviously that story about McShane likely leaving Tyrone. Here he goes, fed up Pogba, all set to op it. That's an exclusive in the Sun. And PFA abuse call, that's on the James McLean situation. The PFA has issued a statement on that. What else do we have?
Paul Pogba on the back of the Star. All yours for 160 million. So Manchester United are willing to sell Paul Pogba this month, but have slapped a 160 million euro price tag on the unsettled Star, which is interesting. Just a story inside, I thought, which was very interesting as well. Tennis's bad boy Nick Kyrgios, and he seems to get a very, very bad rap. Unbelievably talented, but Kyrgios leads bushfire effort. So he's, for every ace that he hits in the month of January, he's going to donate 200 Aussie dollars, equivalent to 125 euro. He's got a load of other players to do it, and he's trying to organise an exhibition as well to help with the bushfire effort.
Yeah, there's a big article on that in one of the broadsheets, which we'll get to as well. This is the back of the Irish Daily Mail. Liverpool go a year unbeaten as Blade sunk. Parrott is primed to fill in for Kane, says the article. But if you read it, it's kind of like saying Harry Kane is injured, Troy Parrott isn't. And whether or not Troy Parrott will do a lot for Spurs, we'll see, but they are playing Middlesbrough in the Cup at the weekend, which might offer him some sort of an opportunity. Really, really pivotal time for Troy. He turns 18 next month. Well, it's pivotal and it isn't. Like, he's loads of time, but it's interesting to see how this year works out for him.
Just
Michael.
The back of the Herald here, obviously Richard Dunn, columnist. I felt like walking out of the match, so this is just why VAR is ruining the game. Something that we might go into in a minute as well. And the other main headline is Reds
Show
march
to that
ahead.
screen there to our
Reds march ahead. Obviously Liverpool all conquering and looking home and hosed.
Did you notice this morning how few people are on the road? You know, Leo's like get up early in the morning. And
Great.
Isn't it great?
It's great to just be able to coast in.
Kids are in bed,
Yeah.
teachers and, you know, people who obviously are back on Monday are still on their holidays.
Because Dublin is a disaster when in full flow.
It is.
Like, it takes me 50 minutes to get in here.
Like their football team, you might say.
Yeah.
Back of the Indo, Reds kick on a 13-point lead. And this typical stuff as well, Aidan Fitzmaurice article with the Slovakia boss. Ireland play a typical British-style game, claims the Slovakia boss. I really hope those days will soon be behind us where this typical British-style game is no more.
The Irish Mirror here, I know it's something you want to go into, Johnny. FAI crisis meeting for LOI Stars. Story by Paul O'Hare. A delegation of League of Ireland players will meet Minister for Sport Shane Ross and Junior Minister Brendan Griffin for crisis talks today. What exactly are we talking here, Johnny?
Well, you know those like images you see on Twitter where it's usually like a girl scantily clad and she's taking a selfie and it's like, what's on your mind? And you get these spoof replies.
Yeah.
So Ronan Cullen, the Go United fan, he replies, what do you want for 2020? And he replies, the First Division fixture list, because we still don't have it. We don't know how many teams win the League of Ireland First Division because Limerick have gone defunct, so there are only 9 teams left. Shamrock Rovers B want to come into the league, but the First Division clubs don't want them to come in, and they have a legitimate kind of grievance, even though I don't really agree with them. But fair enough. On the Premier League, on the Premier Division level, these players are like, well, will their league be around next year with the FAI more or less, you know, on the verge of bankruptcy and so forth? So there's a photograph of Jack Byrne, I suppose, might be the most recognisable player in the league, but that piece will just detail that they're meeting the two politicians today just to ask, where are we at here? Because the league in that Oireachtas meeting last month was sort of, you know, consider this kind of afterthought, where Ross was like, Shane Ross was like, oh, if the FAI goes, yeah, the league would definitely go as well. I think, yeah, definitely, actually. Just he really didn't know. And professional football in this country to be treated as some sort of like unwanted third cousin is head-wrecking for me and for people who love the game. But we have here the Mirror, which you've actually done. This is the Times, and the Times is a really interesting interview, really interesting piece, rather, by Matt Williams, which is pretty grim, actually, really. There was I don't know if you saw, there was an image on Twitter yesterday of the maybe 100-year like Australian weather record and the spikes in extreme weather in the last 10-20 years. But Matt Williams just says the scale of the bushfire catastrophe in Australia puts rugby in perspective. Obviously, you're not going to disagree with that, but he's a very interesting piece about players playing in Australia subsequent to the fires and the quality of the air that they'll play in. And he's quite a grim ending to the piece. He says, what I'm witnessing here is like nothing I've ever seen. Political ineptitude, wildfire, destruction, death, air so polluted. if it damages our lungs and the possible suspension of elite sport. I'm not describing a corrupt banana republic. Tragically, I'm talking about Australia. So obviously Matt is pretty down on the government's response over there. It's horrific stuff, Michael, in fairness.
Unreal. I was in Sydney 2 years ago, and it was the hottest. It was the hottest day on record in 50 years, I think. And I'd be listening in just to see what's been like since. And by all accounts, I've heard like 5 or 6 times at least even hotter temperatures. It just seems to be getting hotter and hotter. It's kind of crazy over there. Yeah, I was in Melbourne before Christmas as well, and we'd unbelievably Irish weather there, which was a bit mad. It was raining quite a lot.
Yeah,
it was actually quite nice because it would cool you down a bit. But yeah, it's terrible what's going on.
We're going to try to forget climate change for the next hour and a half. Liverpool are leading most of back pages this morning. Their 2-0 win over Sheffield United last night was live and off the ball with David Meyler and Nathan Murphy.
Chips it into Salah, inside the D, back to Sadio Mane. Oh, say it, he'll get another chance, and he was never going to miss. Sadio Mane scores Liverpool's second. What a wonderful goal from Liverpool, from one end of the pitch to the other in a flash. Stunning link-up from Mane and Salah. Salah unselfish with his return pass. It was initially stopped at close range from Henderson, but Mane picked himself up to smash it in from just a couple of yards out, and that is surely that. Liverpool are going back 13 points clear at the top of the table. Sadio Mane.
And the lovely tones of Nathan Murphy from last night, and now the lovely tones of him live from Liverpool. How are you, Nathan?
All right, lads, how's it going?
Some sort of a cafe area, is it you're in?
Yeah, I'm in the glamour surroundings of Liverpool Airport. It's actually quite nice to be here in the morning when it's quiet. Generally, I'm here at 11 o'clock on a Sunday night with about 200 Liverpool fans who've had the pleasure of drinking all day, and you're the only sober person on the plane, which is usually quite an experience. So at least this time, everybody's sober.
Last night, what was it like? Didn't get to see the game, obviously. It sounded quite routine, and texted my brother, a long-suffering Liverpool fan, not sure he's ever seen them win the league. I said, Michael, it's happening. He said, I think it is.
It's definitely happening. I don't think there's any question about that. Last night was probably the most straightforward win they've had in the entire campaign so far. Obviously got the early goal. It was a really bad mistake by Baldock. He fell over, whether it was the quality of the ball for Van Dijk or the ground was just slippy. But once Liverpool scored after 3 minutes, I think Sheffield United had 2 half chances in the 4 or 5 minutes afterwards. Dave McGoldrick had the only real shot on target of that first half when he forced Alisson into a decent enough save. But like you saw the statistic around Liverpool's passing, 969 passes. Sheffield United just couldn't get out of their half. Liverpool are so good now against teams that get stuck back. They just recycle possession. They're incredibly patient.
Was that a Premier League record, actually?
Since Opta Stats began. So there may have been games of similar dominance. But it just shows how in control they were. And I think the big difference now with Liverpool from a few years ago is just how patient they are and how patient everyone is. There was no great panic when it was 1-0. You sort of sense if it stayed 1-0, they'd take that and they'd see the game out. Sheffield United had one chance right at the very end of the game where really McBurney should have scored. Mo Bezic came on, who's played for Everton, and even David Meyler said it. He'd probably go and try and kick somebody now, a former Everton player, and he did. He nailed James Milner with about 7 or 8 minutes to go, and that kind of sparked a little bit of something out of Sheffield United. But I think they'll be very disappointed. Like, they didn't do themselves justice.
How are their Irish players?
Poor. Dave McGoldrick still doesn't look like scoring a goal. Unfortunately, like last night is one of those nights where even if he was at his very best, like Van Dijk had him in his pocket. They played 2 up front, so they went with a bit of ambition, but they just couldn't get out from the back. And like this is something going back to the start of the season when people were wondering why they were playing such a really, really high line with pretty much all 10 outfield players in the opposition half. And remember Damien Delaney talking about it, saying they're trying to suffocate the opposition. It means if you win the ball back, there's no out ball because there's so much pressure on you. All you can do is lump it forward, and that's all they did. And every single time, Van Dijk, Gomez picked it up, started it again. So McGoldrick didn't get a sniff. John Egan, I didn't think, did anything wrong. And Stevens had 3 or 4 chances maybe to get a decent delivery in. Didn't quite happen for him, but they were just totally outclassed. And 13 points clear, game in hand, in complete cruise control.
Yeah, we've an interview with Adam Lallana that you did coming up. What's the story there? What can we expect in terms of what is the vibe in Anfield at the moment? Obviously, Lallana's future in slight doubt at the moment.
Yeah, he's had a contract in the summer. So, talking about this with Meyler before the game is that what you do. He can obviously negotiate with clubs at the moment, but I'd be surprised if he did anything before the summer because, as he says during the interview, he's playing with what you'd have to say right now is the best club in the world. And he's going to get some game time. So why have your eye and your focus elsewhere. Whether they give him a new deal, I'm not quite sure. But he's a squad player. Even to replace a squad player at the moment probably costs you 30, 40 million quid. They did have Minamino there last night, who signed from Salzburg. He's probably going to make his debut in the derby at the weekend. So that'll be a little bit of a talking point as the season goes on. The vibe at Anfield is just in such contrast to what it was 2 or 3 years ago, where there was so many nerves. I remember commentating on the defeat to Crystal Palace, which is the last time Liverpool lost at Anfield, 51 games ago.
Wow.
2.5 years. And they were beaten by Palace. And it was the most typical Liverpool defeat at the time, where they went in front through a Coutinho free kick. Benteke comes back, scores a couple of really cheap goals. And at that stage, Liverpool were blowing leads time and time again. Every time they went in front, there was a nervousness. Nobody trusted them at all. Now, I won't say it's a party over there just yet, but there's just complete confidence that whenever they go in front, they're going to win. And I think I saw a statistic that the last 38 times they've scored first at Anfield, they've won the game.
That's insane. If it's not a party, it's kind of like counting down to the weekend type vibe, where you know it's coming and it's nearly there. David Meyler on commentary told a yarn about being on the phone to Jordan Henderson, as Brendan Rodgers told him he could leave Liverpool a few years ago. We're going to play that clip later. Gaz O'Sullivan tweeted, "There's absolutely no way this is a true story." Is it true, Nathan?
Well, he says it's true. That was my initial reaction as well. We spoke a lot about Jordan Henderson before the match, and it was some really good stuff from David Meyler, because he probably knows him as well as anybody. They were the best mates since they were 17, 18, growing up at Sunderland. Spoke about how they had a rivalry when they were at Sunderland. There were two lads probably going for the same position. How even Henderson, as good as he was told at 17, 18 he could leave Sunderland. Only his father came in and said, "Will you give him another chance?" And Sunderland did. Same situation at Liverpool, where I think everyone knows that Brendan Rodgers told him he could go to Fulham, and not he could go, that he should go to Fulham. Henderson said, "I'm not leaving." And David Meyler says that he was on the phone to Jordan Henderson when Brendan Rodgers walked into the room. Henderson didn't hang up, and that Meyler heard the entire conversation.
I believe that.
Henderson, "I'm going nowhere."
Well, we look at Jordan Henderson now, and it's like, what if Jordan Henderson had played for a club that sort of plateaued 6th or 7th in the table? He's been hugely important for Liverpool, but it's kind of these, I suppose, where your career goes. I think you have a plane to catch, have you?
I do.
Is it gone?
Ryanair waits for no man.
No.
It better not be, Johnny. If I'm stuck at Liverpool Airport for the day, God damn.
I love the way you looked out the window there. Oh, no, it's still there. It's grand.
No, there's a Flybe there. I haven't seen my Ryanair. Maybe it's around
All
the
the best,
side.
Nathan.
Cheers, lads.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
There's Nathan. Yeah, the life of the... you wouldn't get this so much because obviously you're more with the... So you'd get your trips to Cheltenham and the international rules, I suppose. That'd be your trips?
Yeah, it was at the Melbourne Cup, actually.
Yes, that as well,
November, which was
up to no good.
Unbelievable. I
went from there to Vegas?
I went from Vegas
to there
and ended up staying in the Crown Promenade, which is connected to the Crown Casino, which is the biggest casino in the Southern Hemisphere. So I just literally couldn't leave casinos. And I'm actually reading the book, around the film 21 at the moment.
Oh, wow.
Blackjack is one of my favourite pastimes, I have to say.
It's
very interesting.
You really have a lot of degenerate interest, Michael.
Coming from Johnny Ward now, that's very rich.
Speaking of degenerate interest, the darts again, from tyre fitting to new world champion Peter Wright. This is in The Guardian, and I love this old photo. The first time I saw Peter Wright play, this photo popped up somewhere, and obviously he's got these ridiculously exotic hairstyles, but this was him back in 1995, 24 years ago, when he didn't look quite the man he does now. That's a nice piece in The Guardian, and another piece in The Guardian as well, which is worth a read, is Jonathan Wilson's analysis on the Solskjaer situation on page 43. Solskjaer's game of patience is running out of time. United should be better than this. What do we have elsewhere, Michael?
Yeah,
the Examiner is always good for the sport.
Yeah, that's to go into serious detail on it. Obviously, to have about Liverpool here kicking on, relentless strides to move ever closer to title destiny. There's a really interesting story inside, though, by Stephen Barry. It's the tip captain who became world bodybuilding champion.
Wow.
It's a former tip ladies football captain, Leanne Barrett. It's just a really, really interesting story. And they just have a picture of her. They have a picture of her here. I don't know if you'll be able to see it in her bodybuilding garb as well. Very, very interesting story. Something different as well, especially for this time of the year. But yeah, it's not your typical.
That's a stark contrast in her Tipperary playing days.
Isn't it just the old baggy Tipperary jersey compared to, the old the bikini? But it's an interesting story. Something different, particularly around this time of the year.
I'm struggling to hold the paper here, which in contrast her physique is making me feel a little bit obsolete. Racing Post into the weekend. We have a big weekend, Naas action. Tolworth Hurdle tomorrow at Sandown. Nace, we have Envoy Allen. I'm sure he's taking your eye.
Yeah, without a doubt, yeah. There's something else here that's taking my eye though too, is Tom Segal and Paul Keeley and a few others from the Racing Post going through our punting resolutions. For
New Year's was just a bad dream, says Nicky Henderson.
Yeah, that's about champ, I suppose. Yeah, it was disappointing, but at least he lives to fight another day, you know. But I'm looking to find out what your punting resolutions are, Johnny.
Like, you gotta record every bet. And I have a problem with this in that I could be flat out doing this for 6 months and then I miss a week, and it's like the gym. I could go for 3 months and miss a week and I just don't go back. So be just wedded to it this year. I've started off this year by recording every bit of work I do because I'm a freelance journalist, so I need to know where I'm working and when I'm slacking off during the year and blah blah blah. And the same with betting, but it's not easy, Michael. It's you know, it's not that easy to get bets on anymore, and obviously you know, discipline is a big thing, but it's getting bets on is, you might fancy a horse at 12 to 1 overnight and it's 6 to 1 the following morning, and that happens a lot, and that's frustrating. But what about yourself?
4 words. Always get the value, as Barney Curley
Always
said.
get the value.
It's always all about the value. If you don't get the value, you're at none. If you think you have an edge on the bookmakers and you think you have knowledge that makes a price seem more attractive than it should be, then I'd say bet.
Put your money where your mouth is. And what do you like for Cheltenham, or do you have any fancies for
this time of the year?
No.
I think it's a bit of a disaster. Shack and Poursois would be a good price for Cheltenham.
5 to 1 is available.
Yeah.
I would agree with you there. Will you be over in Cheltenham this year?
Yeah, it will be, yeah. Looking forward to it already. Actually, it's one of the highlights of the year. I hear them talking about the possibility of extending it to 5 days.
I'm going to write about this today, and I cannot stress how much I'd be against this. Like, I honestly would not go for 5 days, partly in protest, partly because I don't bloody well want to. Like, the 4 days, I don't socialise at Cheltenham anymore because I can't get up early in the morning and work throughout the day. It's just too tough for me. But even if I weren't working, I wouldn't be able to do the 4 days. I thought 3 days was perfect. And, like, does anyone really need a mayor's novice hurdle? Does anyone need a mayor's hurdle? In my mind,
it's
not
diluted
really,
enough as it is. Like, realistically, if I was telling someone to go over, I'd tell them to go over either Tuesday or Friday. Not that I'd write off the 2 days in between, but to me, Tuesday is unbelievably exciting, and then obviously Gold Cup Day is unbelievably exciting. I'd take or leave. I could easily merge Wednesday and Thursday together.
Just going back to the Independent as well, which has loads of stuff in the sports pages at the back today. We did reference this previously, but that article Ewan McKenna wrote, Darts Appeal in Fun and Integrity. This is well worth the read in the sense that I suppose Ewan as a journalist is kind of most known for being on the side of right, and takes on what he would see as perceived kind of woes and issues in sport in terms of integrity and so forth. But Ewan has a piece here on page 50 which basically says the game of the people is real and relatable alternative to sports besmirched by grime. Now it's an interesting piece. When you think besmirched by grime, you think the darts, like, it's quite grimy in its own way, but it's raw and it's real.
Yeah, there's some really interesting stuff there. It's basically looking back at an interview that Ewan did with Mick McKenna, and people that don't follow darts wouldn't know Mick McKenna, but the first ever televised
just to interject there, Michael was absolutely aghast that I couldn't reference this Mick McKenna fella at the start of the show, and then he goes, did you not see the 9-dart finish? Mick McKenna was somewhere in the background that time.
Yeah.
No idea what you're talking about.
1990 BDO World Championship, the first ever televised 9-darter. This is the biggest darting moment of all time.
I was 7 or 8 years of age.
Johnny, I was 4.
4? Were you watching it?
No, but I've seen it a million times since. But Mick McKenna was basically playing against Paul Lim when Paul Lim got the first ever televised 9-darter. Paul Lim, he was Asian, but he was playing for as an American. And Mick McKenna was in the background. The first ever televised 9-darter in the World Championship. Yeah, and Ewan met him in Newbridge, I think in 2010, he says here, but just he was kind of regaling him with all like mad darting stories. Like, for example, he recalled how he could beat Jockey Wilson, famous Scottish dart thrower, former world champion, but only in the mornings when his opponent had the shakes. And it was little wonder as he'd witnessed the Scot run up a $5,000 bill in 10 days at a Toronto hotel, mostly courtesy of his habit of ordering Bacardi. And it's just mad. Remember
that is mad.
Remember not the 9 o'clock news sketch that they did. Ewan has the names mentioned here.
He's a very good writer, Ewan.
Yeah, Die, Fat Belly, Gut Bucket, and Tommy, Even Fatter Belly, Belcher. You know, and they were just drinking pints and taking shots. And darts has changed totally. Like, you wouldn't see anybody drinking on stage now. basically. It's not that saying it's an athlete's game or anything like that, but they do take it far more seriously. There's far more money at stake now as well. It's like, was it 600 grand? Was it 600?
Yeah, 600 grand for a snake bite.
Huge money, like, and not even that. It's all the endorsements and everything that will come with it. Your Premier League place, the amount he can dine on exhibitions for the rest of his career because he's a world champion now. You know?
You were saying to me there, like, he met Mick McKenna. And it reminded me of Dion Fanning had an article where he was in Newcastle one day and he was on the bus and there were a couple of Geordies talking to each other and one of them got off at one stop anyway. And the other lad who was talking to your man goes over to Dion, who he'd never met before, and he goes, "Did you see that?" And he goes, "No." He goes, "That lad only used to drink with Jimmy Nail." It's just like, and Dion was like, right, so he used it as like the fulcrum for his article. Mickey McKenna was only there for a 9-dar finish.
He was there for plenty more as well, but it's very interesting.
It's 8:10 a.m. Friday morning. We're talking football next on OTB AM. Liverpool continue the run to top the Premier League again last night with a 2-0 win at Anfield against Sheffield United. I think it's happening. I think the league is coming back to Liverpool. The game was live and off the ball, and afterwards we caught up with the one and only Adam Lallana.
Well, Adam, 19 wins out of 20 to start a Premier League season. That must be a pretty happy dressing room.
Yeah, of course it is. It was a very tough game, and the manager reiterated that after. Sheffield United, I think, have lost one game in 2019, and that was against City. So we know it was going to be a stern test for us, but I thought the lads put in a very professional performance. It helped getting the win early, but another massive win. And it's been a great Christmas period. It's been a great season for us so far. With 19 wins out of 20. We just need to keep going. Turn to the cup now, so I'm sure the manager might change things up a little bit. We've got a few injuries as it is, so we just need to recover well and just keep this momentum going.
How have you found the first half of the season? Made some big contributions. Obviously the goal at Old Trafford is the one that stands out, but when you've come on, it seems as though you've taken your chance.
Yeah, I've been fully fit all year, feeling great and as strong as ever, and it's going to be difficult getting as much game time as I'd like in this team with this squad, but I'm ready, and we've got injuries, so I've had my fair share of games lately, and I'm sure that will continue throughout January. So just enjoying working hard, playing for the best team in the world, and just keep going to win more silverware.
Is it a bit easier when you're a bit more mature? I'm not going to say an older player, but when you've been around the block and you can kind of look at that bigger picture of, like, this is a team that has achieved great things, looks as though it's going to go on to achieve great things, that even if you're not getting quite the amount of minutes you want, it's not really a case of throwing your toys out of the pram.
Yeah, at times it can be frustrating. As a player, you work hard during the week and you want your reward come the weekend or whenever you play the competitive game. But I'm an experienced player now. I understand my position in the team and what I bring, and like you said before, I've achieved and been involved in plenty of games and contributed a lot this season, so I'm sure there'll be plenty more situations where that'll happen again for the remainder of the year. We've got big games, Champions League, lots of cup competitions as well, like the FA Cup, so it's just about staying healthy and keep working hard.
Yeah, myself and David are actually talking about that before the game. For a player in your position whose contract is up during the summer and you're thinking about what to do, and you can probably negotiate with teams now that you could score the winning goal that claims the title or score in a Champions League semi-final. Are these the things that, when you're not getting that maybe buzz of week in, week out, that keep you going, keep you working hard in the training ground?
Yeah, well, I see it as it's easy just to keep working, and I'm enjoying playing for the best team in the world. It's as simple as that at the minute, and whatever my contract situation is, that'll be going on in the background. There's not a chance that will affect my commitment to this club. I've given 110% throughout my Liverpool career and will continue to do so. Whether that finishes at the end of the season or if that continues, it's a great squad, great bunch of lads, and I couldn't be enjoying my football any more so.
You've been here throughout Klopp's reign. When you look at the standard this group have got to throughout 2019, winning the Champions League, like, can you believe the level you've got to over the space of the last 4 years?
Yeah, I can, because I work with these lads day in, day out, and I see how committed and how much work's put into it. You perform like that and as consistent as that, not through luck, through hard work, dedication, long hours, and it's all worth it.
Yeah. What is, like, you've obviously worked with some great managers at international level, at club level, with Mauricio Pochettino, people like that. You're probably at a stage again where you can look at managers a bit differently and try and take little tips and things from coaches. Can you put your finger on what it is Klopp has? Is it just man management? Is it a bit of everything?
Yeah, he's got a bit of everything. He's very intense, but he can demand that out of his players with keeping them on side. You know, he makes us believe that to be more intense means we've got more chance of being successful, and you see that out there with what the lads put into every game. And yeah, we might have to sacrifice different aspects of our life for that and to be at that level, but it's really worth it.
We spoke quite a bit before the game about Jordan Henderson, and David was telling us about the journey he's been through and some of the setbacks he's come back from. He was man of the match tonight. I know you're very good friends with him. Like, the level he's got to this season, have you seen him play better?
I don't think I've seen him play as consistently as good as this in his career. He's a selfless captain at the end of the day, and he's reaping his rewards by lifting all the trophies that are coming his way now, and he won't want to stop there. He plays 6, he plays 8, he sacrifices himself a lot of the time for this team, and it's only rightly so that he's reaping the rewards and the recognition that for me should have been coming his way for years now.
And for you, Sunday, Merseyside derby. While some might have wanted maybe some lower league opposition, I'd imagine a Merseyside derby is exactly what you want if you get on that pitch.
Oh, exactly. It's exactly what you want. Not sure what the team's going to be yet if he makes changes. You know, what a game for the young lads to be in and around. We had 4 or 5 of them on the bench today, so it's the fans will turn up and it'll be a great atmosphere, and thoroughly looking forward to it.
You're having to try and figure out what you talk to 16-year-olds when you're sitting beside them on the bench.
Well, yeah, a bit of babysitting at the weekend I think I'll be up to.
Cheers, Adam. Right, thanks.
That was Adam Lallana talking to Nathan last night. Hopefully Nathan got his flight. Kenny Cunningham, good morning.
Morning, lads.
How are you keeping?
Yeah, I'm all good. Considering I'm only on my bed about 2.5 minutes, I'm all right.
You sound like you're still in bed, actually.
Yeah. Now, far more professional than that, John.
Yeah, is he, Michael? Do you think he does sound a little bit gingerly this morning?
No, he's given the impression that he's good to go. He could be still in bed, but it doesn't matter. He's given the impression that he's good to go anyway.
It's interesting.
Always.
It's interesting you're not on the video Skype. But what did you make of Liverpool last night, Kenny? I mean, what can possibly go wrong? We're into the new year. They have a game in hand. They're 13 points clear. Man City aren't even second in the table. It's game over, isn't it?
It is game over, and it really has been for I'd say a couple of weeks now, John. I didn't watch the game last night, to be honest with you. I didn't have to. I was watching the film with the young fella.
What did you watch?
I didn't feel the need to kind of race down the stairs and clear everybody out of the sitting room, put on the telly, and and the wonder that could Liverpool, is this going to be the year? It's done, and it has been really since that kind of Leicester and those Wolves games, which came in quick succession, John, at the end of December. That's pretty much it for me. It's put it to bed. So the question for me now, really going forward, is not obviously if they're going to win it, is by how much really they're going to win it. And I think that is important, John, because for me, Liverpool have an opportunity now to do something really extraordinary, and it's not winning the league title. Mm-hmm. Like I said, for me, that's done. It's really how they manage their season between now and the end of May, and I'm thinking in particular now Champions League. Because all the talk, and understandably, around Liverpool first half of the season has been the league title. Can they do it? I always felt they would. They were strong enough and they would go and do it. So it won't be surprised if they do. But the surprise is how far they've got themselves ahead at this point of the season. And I just think there's an opportunity now for Liverpool between now and by the time that Champions League starts up again in February to actually extend their lead, and extend the lead over probably the only team who you could make any. People might make an argument who could beat them, Manchester City. If they can get that lead to 15, 20 points by the time, at least, close to 20 points by the time Champions League starts up in February, well, Liverpool will almost have the luxury then of kind of refocusing away from the league title, nobody will be saying it, towards that Champions League, and actually regaining that Champions League and making this season, which was going to be an extraordinary one anyway, in terms of Super Club World Cup and that cherished league title, into a pretty extraordinary one by actually having the opportunity to retain their Champions League, which for me is looking more feasible as the weeks go on. And actually, looking at the performances at Liverpool, particularly after Leicester performance over Christmas, they actually went up a notch, John, which is hugely encouraging for Liverpool supporters going into the second half of the season. Now, and as good as they are, there's actually a little bit more to come second half of the season.
Yeah, they're obviously in FA Cup action at the weekend, as are Tottenham, who play Middlesbrough, and that brings us on to Robbie Keane being obviously part of the Middlesbrough backroom team, and Troy Parrott, who is at least potentially, or in theory, in line to replace Harry Kane, who got injured on New Year's Day. Where do you see the Parrott situation working out at Tottenham? Or, we have Son coming back in, as well as Mourinho going to look for a quick fix with a player coming in, or will he give Parrott some game time?
I'd imagine he'll get some game time, John, but I don't think Troy will be his go-to man. I think Son will be the one he'll turn to, not as a quick fix. I genuinely think Son can play in that position. And I actually think there's an argument for saying when Son plays in that position ahead of Harry Kane, he actually gives Tottenham a totally different dynamic. His kind of mobility, his ability kind of to run in behind, stretch teams down the side, beat people in 1v1 situations. I think it actually helps Tottenham in some respects. So although I'd never say that Tottenham are strengthened with Harry Kane out of the team, the kind of positions they're in at the moment, like team performances haven't been great. Actually bringing Son into the team, that centre forward position, I think will actually help him. And unfortunately for Troy, he just might have to be content with a couple of cameo performances. You could argue maybe the FA Cup would be a great chance to start them, but I just feel as if there's a certain amount of pressure on Mourinho at the moment. A few little grumbles coming out of Tottenham in terms of that initial little bounce suddenly has been lost. The kind of the issues prior to Pochettino's departure from the club are kind of bubbling to the surface again. So I think every game at the moment is important for Tottenham and Mourinho in particular, and that just might go against Troy at the moment. He just might have to be patient and just take any amount of minutes he can get off the bench.
Yeah, there's a few notable fixtures, I suppose, primarily Liverpool and Everton on Sunday. What sort of interest will Liverpool have in the competition, do you think? And given that they're probably home and hose in the league, they could win the Champions League. The Cup is obviously easier to win than the Champions League, or at least it should be. Is it something that Klopp will be keen on winning, do you think, given that he kind of abandoned the League Cup this year?
It definitely won't be his priority. It's as simple as that, Johnny. And like League O, without a doubt, we know how important that is. But for me, Champions League, again, is not far behind that. And like I said, I just feel they've been so good first half of the season. They put themselves in such a great position. They very well may have the luxury second half of the season of actually targeting Champions League ahead of the league title. So when those big league games come Saturday and Champions League Tuesday, where if Liverpool were going into those games, Johnny, generally with a maybe 3-4 point lead in the league, with a Champions League fixture coming up, generally speaking, the mindset at Anfield this season, the demand from the Liverpool supporters would be, it's all about the Holy Grail, the Championship. I'm sure the focus would be on the league. You put your strongest 11 out. Liverpool could very well have the luxury going into those games of actually targeting Champions League and let it go home and away and whoever comes down the road, and actually targeting those games and prioritising them as opposed to the remaining league fixtures. You mentioned the FA Cup. I don't think he'll totally disregard the tournament in terms of putting like the youth team out again, but clearly he's going to rotate his squad of players as well, give everybody game time, keep everybody happy, keep a happy camp, but his priority, without a doubt, 100%, will be those league fixtures. A couple of tricky ones coming up in January and obviously February, March, but that Champions League now, more so than ever, there's been no real talk about the Champions League in terms of retention of the Champions League trophy, Johnny, but that's going to grow and grow as the second half of the season as we eat into it, because there's no team better suited to go on and win this competition again than the makeup of this Liverpool team in terms of their ability to hurt teams in possession of the football and also soak up pressure and be a good sound defensive unit and just have that ability to kind of grind out results that they have been all season. That's the kind of DNA that you need to go and win the Champions League. So, yeah, there's not more to say really in terms of Liverpool. Yeah. They've never been in a better position.
I suppose just if you were to make the case for the contrarian argument here, Liverpool have played in the Premier League this year in which Man United have been crap for the greater part. Spurs have been miles off it. Arsenal have been rubbish around mid-table. Man City haven't been at their best. When they played in Europe against teams that were able to match up with them, notably Napoli, they disappointed a bit. So is Europe going to give us maybe a truer indication of where Liverpool are at, albeit in what could be a record-breaking season?
No, you're absolutely right, John. In terms of the general level of performance, this is what I've been saying first half of the season. I don't think Liverpool have been at their best. And you're right, those frailties have been exposed more so in the Champions League football because of the quality that they're up against. If they were to maintain that same level of performance second half of the season, you're right, I think they'd probably come unstuck somewhere. But for me, there's indications there that Liverpool are looking stronger. Joe Gomez has come back into the team of late alongside Van Dijk at centre-half. They're strongest central defensive pair, and that makes them stronger. It's been no surprise that the majority of Liverpool's clean sheets this season that have come in December, I'm thinking Wolves, Leicester, Salzburg, Watford, last night against Sheffield United. That was a struggle for them so far this season, John. But Henderson coming back into the team, that holding midfield position. Fabinho out, Henderson in, and that holding midfield position with those two lads in behind them has made them more defensively secure. For me, that's an absolute fact. So there's the improvement already. So if they can add a little bit more in terms of like performance levels, 10-15% second half of the season, I don't think they have to do a huge amount more from an attacking point of view, such as the quality they have sprinkled across the top line, the quality from their fullbacks. And yes, they have to keep certain key players fit. That will certainly be a help. That's the case with any team. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I think the level of performance has to improve. But I'm already seeing that improvement of late in the Liverpool team, and keep those players fit in key areas of the pitch for me. Gomez at centre-half, Henderson that holding midfield position, not that number 8 role which Lallana said, his flexibility, he can play in an advanced midfield position. Of course he can, and yes, Fabinho can come back in. He's a very good player, big fan of Klopp's. But for me, he's not as defensive secure as Henderson. And for me, the clean sheets in December for Liverpool are testament to the fact of Henderson's presence, patrolling in front of those two centre-halves, and Gomez back in alongside Van Dijk at centre-half.
Just before you go, the back of the Irish Daily Star today, an interesting story by Paul Lennon. Mick McCarthy and his Ireland staff may be asked to forego or cut their Euro 2020 bonus should the boys in green qualify. And it says last weekend, Minister for Sport Shane Ross said he would welcome any move by McCarthy to cut his current $1 million per year salary in order to help out the FAI. Now, McCarthy's salary is a legacy of the exalted fees that Irish managers were paid going back to Trapattoni and so forth. But put yourself in Mick McCarthy's shoes here, Kenny, because this is a tricky one for him. He's entitled to his contract, but at the same time his employer is broke.
Yeah, it is a very delicate one for Mick. I think there has been a drop-off in terms of Mick's wage, Johnny. £1 million seems a lot of money, and it is a lot of money, but in comparison to what's been paid previously, you go back to Giovanni Trapattoni and the previous manager, Martin O'Neill. I think I saw a figure of about €26 million in terms of what was paid out during their time. I mean, the fact we actually paid a cheque out, I think it was £3 million to Martin and his staff when they actually left the job not too long ago. That was talk about rubbing salt into the wound. And you're right, in terms of the amount of money we've paid, I know there's been involvement with Dennis O'Brien the last few years, the amount of money we've paid to managers and the support staff prior to actually Mick taking over, for me, is absolutely obscene. A country the size of ours to be paying managers wages in comparison to the top 5 managers in the world is absolutely ridiculous. There's absolutely no need for it. We need to pay a good wage to our manager and support staff, absolutely. But it has to be manageable, and for me, that's nowhere near the exorbitant sums of money that we've been paying out the past couple of years. I think there has been a drop-off in terms of Mick coming in. Going forward, might that have to be reduced again? That may well be the case. I wouldn't have a problem with that. But if you ask me, Mick's contract at the moment, having already agreed the contract, I think that's a difficult situation. The Mick's only contracted till the summer. There's an issue there about the bonuses. I think that's a fair argument, but it's a difficult one for Mick. I have a little bit of sympathy for him, but I don't think it's not about Mick. For me, it's about long term going forward. There should be an amount of money there in the pot, Johnny, going forward for potential Irish managers of the future. I know Stephen's coming in again. His contract's agreeing. That won't be an issue. That won't be an exorbitant sum of money that's been paid to Stephen either. But there should be a pot of money, wherever it is. $750,000, $500,000 to the senior Irish international manager and his support staff. everybody included, and that's the figure. No matter who it is who comes in, who sits down to talk about the job of the Irish senior manager, that's the agreed sum of money that's paid to the Irish international manager. And if any prospective Irish manager isn't happy with it and feels he wants more, you shouldn't even walk through the door and sit down and have a conversation with the Irish FA. It should be a realistic figure, and for me that's been absolutely just hasn't been the case over the past kind of 10 years. It's been absolutely exorbitant. So I know it's a contentious issue at the moment, highly sensitive in terms of the association, what's happened, but I think it's a fair point in terms of everybody's got to look in terms of money that's been paid out. Everybody's got to take stock, and I understand there'll be mention of kind of mixed contracts there, but at least it's coming back towards a figure which I think most people will be comfortable with in terms of money being paid to the Irish senior international manager.
Thanks for your time, Kenny.
No problem, chaps.
Before 9 a.m, we're going to have Micheal, Verney's colleague Ruaidhri O'Connor in talking rugby. We'll be chatting GAA with Micheal after 9 o'clock. An awful lot to get through, despite it being in early January. And we'll also have the latest edition of Deal or No Deal. But before that, we'll have Tom Malone in for the sports news. And before that, here's David Meyler chatting to Nathan last night.
So Liverpool have moved one step closer to the Premier League title. It's now 19 wins out of 20 to start the season, and this one of the more straightforward wins, a 2-0 victory against Sheffield United. David Meyler was alongside me here at Anfield. A record number of passes for Liverpool, 969, probably reflective of just how dominant they were.
Yeah, it was it was a comfortable evening for Liverpool. When they needed to turn it on, they did. They got the goals, and then they just controlled the game. It was played at a slow pace, but Liverpool in full control, complete dominance. Like you said, most passes since Opta's come in, and 969. I saw a stat there myself on the telly there, how I think the whole back four had over 120 touches of the ball themselves. Then you had Milner, Wijnaldum and Henderson, another 100 each. It's just remarkable, really. But they played in second gear, third gear. They didn't break much stride, and it was a comfortable night for them.
Difficult night for Sheffield United because they never really got out of first gear, you felt, because Liverpool scored so early. Most inopportune slip by Baldock allows Robertson in. Salah, clinical finish, 3 minutes. Whatever game plan they had, it is the old cliche, it did feel like it was out the window. Yeah, it does.
You have to feel for George Baldock. Like, you complimented Van Dijk's pass. It's just more of a pass into an area, and Baldock unfortunately gets his footing mixed up, falls. Robertson just has to roll the ball across the box. Salah's there because he's ahead of O'Connell to tap it into the back of the net, and you just felt then Sheffield United had no answer. Liverpool just kept the ball, moved it around really well. Yes, they did it well, but they never gave Sheffield United any real chance. Henderson, Wijnaldum, Milner won every second ball, won every header. They picked it up in good areas, and they just never left Sheffield United into the game.
Liverpool never really had to hit top gear. They never had to find a level where it flowed consistently. But when it did, like for that second goal, the speed of the counter-attack and just the execution from Mane and Salah to somehow in these tight areas pull off just brilliant passes and brilliant finishes.
Well, that's it. That's what Liverpool are known for. They were deep. The ball was, down the left-hand side for Sheffield United. Enda Stevenson put in a bit of a high cross. Alisson comes collect it and they roll the ball out. But as you said, Robertson gives it to Mane and then we're away. The speed that he breaks at is incredible. He's bursting on the pitch at 100 mile an hour, plays the ball into Salah, gets it back, should score the first one. It's a good save from Henderson, falls to him, he just taps it into the empty net. But at times when those, especially Salah and Mane, are going at full speed, it's just remarkable to watch, and it really is a joy.
You've played at this stadium against Liverpool. You mentioned at 8 times in commentary you scored at this stadium against Liverpool. Even from a few years back, how much better are this side right now in terms of the pace of the game? You touched on it, on how difficult it is for the Sheffield United players because of just how quick everything happens. The speed that Liverpool are playing at, the things are happening, the execution, is it at a different level to what it was previously?
Yeah, I think at the top of the show we touched on it. I think this team has probably more arrogance than it had before. They're playing like champions. I do think that's partly down to them obviously winning the Champions League, but they just come out and their chests are out. You spoke about the great Man United team when Roy Keane was captain, how they beat teams in the tunnel. It's nearly as if this Liverpool team have that kind of touch of arrogance and have a bit more about them than they've had in the past. And when they get in front, they don't look like they're going to concede, or they don't look like they're going to lose games. They look comfortable and they look like they're really enjoying it. And look, I've been on the receiving ends of hidings off Liverpool at Anfield. It's tough. You think you have the ball, but when you turn over possession, as much as Sheffield United did tonight, it's going to be a long evening. And unfortunately for them, they just couldn't keep hold of it.
You told us some great stories at the start of the show about Jordan Henderson, who you've known for such a long time, since you started out together at Sunderland, and some of the setbacks he's faced and the resilience he's shown, and even somehow been on the other side of the phone when Brendan Rodgers was telling him he could leave Liverpool to go to Fulham. He was bloody brilliant there tonight.
Yeah, like we joked about Kenny Cunningham raving about him in that holding role. Kenny's a big fan of him there, and look, he was remarkable tonight. He just was everywhere where he needed to be. Every second ball fell loose, he was there. He kept it simple. He didn't complicate the game. He did everything his manager would have wanted him. It was a terrific captain's performance in a holding role. He won his tackles, he won his headers, he won the second balls, and he kept it simple.
If Liverpool weren't to win the title from here, it would be a collapse. I think that, well, firstly, this club and its supporters would never get over. It would be beyond compare. But I think people are starting to accept it's going to happen. And you look at the statistics now, 51 games unbeaten here at Anfield in the Premier League, 18 straight wins at Anfield in the Premier League. They've gone over a full calendar year unbeaten in the Premier League, 6 straight clean sheets. Are we looking at one of the great Premier League sides?
That's very difficult. The great Premier League teams that come up in conversation have won championship after championship. They've won 2 championships in 3 years, or they've won back-to-back championships. This Liverpool team were desperately unlucky last year. They were beaten by one of the great teams. Now, if Liverpool they're going to have to either break the 100 points, or they're going to have to win multiple championships. And I'm desperate for Liverpool to win it, but that's what they'll have to do. If they want to be regarded as one of the greatest Premier League teams, they have to win multiple championships, or they have to break the 100 point, and that's just the way it is.
All right, Dave, great stuff tonight as always.
Thank you, Nathan.
Yeah, welcome back. Tom Bugsy Malone is in studio.
Here we are.
Inevitably,
yes.
Michael Verney, Tom Malone and I, the little couple of minutes that we had, we talked about Dundalk tonight. But it's probably not in your sports news.
It actually is. It's the bottom story.
Wow.
So it's down the bottom. Just to remind people what they can do this evening of a Friday. No, we'll start with Liverpool. 13 points clear at the top of the Premier League table after a 2-0 win against Sheffield United last night. Goals in either half for Mo Salah. Inside Omani gave the Reds a win, keeping them unbeaten for a year in the Premier League. Jurgen Klopp says, though, there are 2 main reasons why they're not getting carried away with title talk.
It's really an intense period of the year, so it's not like somebody wants to go out tonight and have a few drinks, so they're all happy when they're in the bed. And because this player wants to do better, knows that he has to do better in this or this situation.
Well, Wayne Rooney last night captained Derby in the Championship for their first back-to-back wins of the season. The former England striker played in the centre of midfield on debut, setting up the first goal in that 2-1 win over Barnsley. Rooney, though, says he's aiming much higher with Derby.
Looking at the league table, we're 7 points off playoffs, which, of course, it's catchable, no doubt about that. We can make playoffs if we show a bit more consistency and work hard.
There's nothing better than the Championship. It's like
it's unbelievable.
Derby. I was watching the game last night. Derby, I think Rooney coming in, they won their last game, but Derby have this confidence now that Rooney is there. And Millwall, I'm trying to follow the Championship through the Irish players that are playing, and there are a lot. The last time I saw Millwall, they were practically in the relegation zone. Now they're top 6. It's nuts. I love it. You always have a chance if you go on a run.
But it's it is that thing where you just need to keep in any kind of contention. Look, the top 2 look miles there. I think they're 9.
It's not a...
West Brom and Leeds are 9 points clear of third.
Yeah.
But then when you look 6 down to about 15th...
Anything could happen.
Yeah. Elsewhere, of course, something you touched on already, a delegation of League of Ireland footballers is set to meet with Ministers for Sport Shane Ross and Brendan Griffin today. Ross last month claimed that the domestic league could be lost if the FAI was liquidated. He later wrote back in those claims and agreed to meet the players to address their concerns. So an agreed meeting is set for Leinster House this afternoon with Irish international Jack Byrne and Dundalk stars Brian Gartland and Gary Rogers among those set to be in attendance. It's an enormous story.
It is. It's the welfare of players and just the League of Ireland to be kind of this afterthought in the whole FAI mess. I'd never had any doubt that the League of Ireland would happen in 2020, but we still don't know how many teams are in the first division, and the season starts next month.
Yeah. Let's move on to rugby. Munster welcome back a whole host of international stars for tonight's Pro 14 visit to Ulster. Andrew Conway, Keith Earls, Joey Carberry, Conor Murray, Niall Scannell and captain Peter O'Mahony will be among those returning to the starting team, while Jacob Stockdale and Ian Henderson are back in the Ulster fold after their 35-3 win over Connacht last night. They kick off in the Interpro there at 7:35 at the Kingspan Stadium in Belfast. While Scarlets can go top of Conference B in Rugby Union's Pro 14 with a win tonight, they make the trip to Welsh side Cardiff Blues, also kicking off at 7:35. In Gaelic games, Cork and Limerick's footballers will meet in the final of the pre-season McGrath Cup for the first time since 2007. The Rebels beat Tipperary last night 3-19 to 14 points with a hat-trick of goals from Michael Hurley. Limerick, meanwhile, were 2-10 to 10-point winners against Waterford in last night's other semi-final. That decider will take place on January 18th. And of course, this weekend it is AIB Club All-Ireland semi-final weekend, earlier than usual. Currafin take on Nemo Rangers in Ennis at 1:30 on Saturday. While at 3:30 at 2015 champions Ballybowden St Enda's take on Kilcoo of Down. Ballybowden fullback Shane Clayton says the club are welcoming the shorter format for the club finals this time round.
Yeah, definitely, because the last time when we won in 15 we had, I think it was nearly an 8-week break till the semi-final. This one is a lot quicker turnaround, but it's a challenge we are relishing. This is where you want to be. I know people might say with the Christmas and stuff, but it's something you just have to take, and everyone is wants to be where we are at the minute, and we're hopefully not going to let that pass us.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Of course, club final in January, a little bit weird, but
it's a bit weird, very, very weird.
First weekend in January is a bit nuts, yeah. They've had to forego Christmas. I know they'll probably say that it'll all be worth it if they win. Only one of them's obviously going to win. It's just a bit of a strange kind of scenario. Next year it's going to be mid-December. They're getting closer towards the calendar year, but
pull into the
guys that are playing this year are suffering.
It definitely takes away from St Patrick's Day, though.
There's a couple of things. By playing it at this stage, it gets all the attention, that's what I will say, and it doesn't get lost in the inter-county season. But yeah, it's very condensed.
It's not the same.
It does clash with the BDO darts, so.
It does actually. BDO starts on Saturday.
And of course, as we mentioned earlier, Racing Later coming from Dundalk from 5 o'clock tonight.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, guys.
Two of our best sports stars have come together for a brand new show on Off the Ball in 2020. Keane and McGean Unleashed. Ellen Keane and Kieran McGean will be discussing their own careers and talking to Sonia O'Sullivan and Kelly Harrington in the first episode, which premieres as part of our Nullig Naman special on Sunday, January 5th. A day of nothing but female voices on Off the Ball. Off the Ball on special coming your way on Sunday, January 5th, and that's thanks to Lidl, who are supporting women's sport and the 20v20 moments, and of course Lidl putting massive money into women's sport, showing how it could be done if the League of Ireland could take note in terms of its potential. Here's Ellen Keane and Sonia O'Sullivan.
As it is such an important year with the Tokyo Olympic and Paralympic Games coming up, Sonia, what advice would you give to any Irish athlete who aims to go for a medal in Tokyo?
A medal in the Olympics, it's one of those things that, you know, everybody around the world, they all kind of up their game, they up their training in an Olympic year. And some people change things and some people continue doing the same things. And I think if you've got to a certain level and you've been successful and you're happy with your rate of progression, then I wouldn't change things too much. I think people think that because it's an Olympic year, you have to change things and do things a lot different. Whereas I think you just have to do the same again and maybe do it a little bit better. And that's what I used to do when I got up to running 100 miles a week. You know, I didn't then all of a sudden decide I had to run more than 100 miles a week. I just got better at running 100 miles a week, and you get better at managing it and controlling it. And, you know, the Olympics, it's not, it's not that much different than the World Championships. The same people are running there, but it just has that bigger feeling about it, and more people know about it and more people ask you about it, and it just can become a bigger thing in your mind than it really is. And I think you just have to break it down into small pieces and, you know, follow the same routine that you do for training to, you know, small races to big races, and you just follow that routine all the way to the Olympics.
Ruaidhri O'Connor, you're welcome.
Thanks, Johnny.
That's it.
You could
nothing,
say.
nothing more to offer. You come in with a keep cup.
I did, yes.
Sign of things to come.
Oh, I had one before. This is not a resolution. This is not a fad. This is a
fad. I cycled in this morning.
But one second. What did you do, Verney?
You
had a keep cup and you didn't keep it. No, I did. Yeah. No, this is the same one I had before Christmas.
Very effeminate.
Oh, right.
I
thought you meant you had another one before that.
You
have to have two on the go.
All men.
Otherwise, you're doing the washing the whole time. It is.
You didn't have an article about keep cups yesterday, but you did a very interesting article about the Irish scrum half situation. Now, where are we with this? Because you would probably point out, I think you've been consistent with this, that Conor Murray should be vulnerable. Schmidt was playing him and Sexton when the partnership clearly wasn't working last year, but this may not be the case with Farrell in that. And this is a point that I, as not really a rugby fan, but something that I could definitely see happen. Farrell has to make some statement of intent as well. Yeah. And is this going to be it?
It might be. We don't know. Like, this is the problem. Like, not problem. It's the exciting thing, I suppose, about the fact that we're going into a Six Nations with a new coach for the first time since 2013.
And we're only a month away.
All bets are off. I know he was we are less than a month. I mean, it was the 1st of February, the first game. It's quite early this year. So, I think it's one of the major talking points, and it's one of the major barometers of what he's going to do. So he's worked with Conor Murray in the 2013 Lions Tour, the 2017 Lions Tour. He's been involved in a setup where Conor Murray has been an automatic first choice since 2016, and has been one of the best players, if not the best player in the Irish team during most of that time.
Prior to his neck injury.
Prior to his neck injury, and he has not come back from that neck injury in the same form, able to do the same things, able to influence games in the same way. And yeah, you know, it's hard. It was hard to argue last year that he should have been dropped at any point, but on reflection, with the benefit of hindsight, you wonder whether being left out sometime around the Six Nations last year
would have helped.
Would have maybe given him the kick up the backside to kind of come back stronger.
But is the kick up the backside, or is it a physical ailment, or is it a mental thing?
Well, we don't know, because we can only observe what we're seeing on the pitch. He's definitely not as, like, his pass is dropping off. He's not as sharp. He's a bit more ponderous around the breakdown. And as it happens, the RFU's policies there to support Andy Farrell and to give Andy Farrell options have created a situation. We've got 4 Irish scrum halves starting, 6 now, because Connacht have 2 very good players, and Leinster have 2 very good candidates as well. So we've got lots of Irish contenders. So the field has improved, and Conor Murray has come back to them a bit. And it is one of the big questions. Like, I think John Cooney is the form out half in Ireland.
Well, also play Munster tonight.
Yeah.
So are we expecting both to be playing?
They are staying. Yeah, who's been named.
So it's a really kind of interesting subplot to the game itself.
Oh, like, it's probably the plot. Like, you know, it's Pro 14 in January. You know, this is like we're moving into Six Nations selection period. That the squad is going to be named in the next 2 weeks. I like personally. I'm going up to the game. Carberry's starting as well, so I really want to see what he's like. There's a few other players I'm looking forward to see. Carberry's just back. He came back last weekend off the bench against Leinster and got through about 30 minutes because JJ Hanrahan got injured. So they kind of have to play him because they've got injuries elsewhere.
It's a fascinating game, so on many levels.
It's the most interesting Interpro.
Where does Carberry fit in the Six Nations?
Well, this is the thing. Like, if Carberry gets 6 weeks of good rugby under his belt, not 6 weeks, 4 weeks of good rugby. If he gets the next 3 games, 2 European games under his belt, and Sexton's not playing. Like, the one thing I would take from the World Cup was Ireland have to pick on form. You can't just rely on reputations. Now, coaches will build models around the amount of caps you want to have players going into World Cups, because there is a kind of an example of that in other countries of who've been successful before. New Zealand ripped that up last year. South Africa ripped that up. All bets are off now. And if Andy Farrell wants to get a winning start, and if he wants to light fires under players as well, it has to be, like, if Joey Carberry comes out and is man in the match in the next 3 games, then I think he should be starting for Ireland in the Six Nations.
With who alongside him?
With who? Well, probably John Cooney, because John Cooney, unless Conor Murray has a brilliant month, John Cooney's the form player.
Okay, so let's.
But that's the way I look at it.
Let's hypothesise here, though. How would Cooney and Carberry work in your ideal situation?
Well, that is a risk.
Never played with each other before.
They've had very limited time in training together. So yeah, you're Andy Farrell coming in. It's your first game. There's a bit of, you know, you're a bit burnt from the World Cup as well as everyone else. You want to get 2 wins under your belt against Scotland and Wales, and you've got Conor Murray sitting in one corner with Johnny Sexton, like the most experienced, the second most experienced Test combination in history, the most experienced Irish Test combination in history, and then you've got Carberry and Cooney. Like, Cooney's only a year younger than Conor Murray, so age profile is not a big thing for him. But Carberry is probably going to be Ireland's out half of the next World Cup if fitness goes his way, because, you know, I just can't see Sexton getting there personally.
But you're talking about 2 kind of off-the-cuff players as well, aren't you? And that it could be amazing, and it probably would need time to bed in if it happened.
Yeah, well,
That is the thing. Like, I mean, it does. Like, Farrell wants to win. Farrell wants to win the Six Nations. I mean, what better start could he get than bouncing into the, taking Leinster's form and putting it into a Six Nations and getting a trophy in his first one to just basically move on from that World Cup, eradicate some of the bad smell that's hanging around. So it's a massive call, and it's not an easy call. Like, I think people are very quick, and it's easy for me to sit in here and say, Cooney, Carberry, let's go for it. Let's face it.
Your head isn't on the line.
My head isn't on the line. So it is a difficult call for him. It also depends who's at 12, who's at 8. Does he go Caelan Doris as his young player as the number 8, which means he probably wants to have an experienced 9 and 10 outside him because he's been making his international debut. So there's all sorts of scenarios at play. But if you're going on form, if you're picking an Ireland 15 based on the season so far, Conor Murray's not in it. Like, it's John Cooney. He's outstanding. He's making some of the same mistakes as Murray. But the next thing he does is nearly always like a try or a game-changing tackle. And he's one of these guys, his highlights reel is incredible this season. I know maybe he shouldn't be picking on highlights reels, but we can only see what we see. And I think he deserves his chance.
Has Murray ever had any doubts throughout his career? Is this the first time he's ever
Since he's become established, not really. I mean, his story is remarkable, the way he came through on the eve of the 2011 World Cup, kind of had a really good run towards the end of that season for Munster, and then basically took... leapfrog both O'Leary and Stringer and Redden into that position. Joe Schmidt dropped him for his second game. He played against Samoa in his first game, and then he got dropped for the Australia game. They lost heavily, and he was reinstated for the New Zealand game a week later. And it may more have been a squad management, resting him and keeping him fresh for New Zealand. I'm not sure, but it was a bit of a kind of a message saying, look, I like Colin Redden. I'm willing to trust him in big games. That was the last time that really ever happened. I think the nadir for it was the time that he did his shoulder over in Cardiff in, I think, the 2017 Six Nations, and he clearly only had one arm, and Joe Schmidt left him on for about 15 minutes.
That's right, yeah.
And like, that was kind of a sign that, like, I don't trust any of these guys.
Yeah.
But I mean, Ireland beat New Zealand and England without him in 2018. So there is while he is on his day, the second best scrum half in the world, he hasn't been on his day for a while, and maybe a period coming off the bench, maybe just a kick up the backside, as I say, is what it needs, because I think there is a cosy group of Ireland players who've been the trusted leadership core of that Ireland setup for so long that needs to be broken up a bit, and it needs to be a bit of fresh life.
I think that's the intriguing narrative about the Six Nations, and that there's a new coach who has to put his stamp on it, and that element of doubt about who he's going to drop and who's going to be the fall guy and so forth. Ronan O'Gara has a really interesting article in the Irish Examiner today. Asked the local boulangerie about relegation anxiety. He'll tell you a couple of really interesting lines, just going on about like proper kind of hard rugby being beneficial towards players. Maybe after what happened at the World Cup, it might be better for Irish players to get tested in a hostile environment more often. Leinster down in Limerick, we could have had Sexton or Henshaw getting gut-checked in front of a hostile crowd, 20,000 plus, hoping they screw up every time they're near the ball. That's surely good for the development of a player. And then he said, for everyone's benefit, a full metal jacket Leinster v Munster is a prerequisite in Irish rugby, and for Irish rugby, it's not as if the players are overburdened with pressure fixtures or dealing with the threat of relegation. And which is interesting as well, because obviously Leinster have 13 games, they've won 13 on the bounce, and he's making the point that even that game that they had, the two of them playing each other there over the Christmas was really beneficial. And this is a fascinating week, because Leinster play Connacht tomorrow, as well as the four Irish provinces in action against each other.
Yeah, and if you go on Instagram, you can see that half of the Ireland squad are off in New York or South Africa or having their holidays. So O'Gara, I don't think you can discount. We have this system, and it's worked very well for us in Six Nations. It works very well for us in the European Cup, but it didn't do anything for us in Japan. So
who's to blame for there?
See, I think we all accepted that the Irish system was protecting the players, and was a good thing. That players, it means this part of the season, but they're in the middle of a 13-month season. They do need a rest at some stage, or that is the theory, that they need a rest. It does seem strange that you'd ask players to go 13 months without any sort of a break, and giving them a 2-week break over Christmas seems like a good idea to refresh them so that they come into that Six Nations in good form, because the English players are playing big games against each other all over the Christmas period. But if you have a man of Ronan O'Gara's stature in France saying what he's saying, I think you have to listen to him. You can't just go, sure, look, he's a La Rochelle coach. He's fighting a battle himself. He's fighting his own corner. It's his own agenda. Ronan O'Gara cares about Irish rugby, and I think we do have to recognise the fact that these games have been diminished. And it's a price that we seem to be willing to pay. Certainly the fans are still going to the games. I don't think people are tuning in to the same degree that they would if it was, like last year, Sexton Carberry was a really good draw for that game, but this year, like that game was a bit of a nothing match.
I'm a casual rugby supporter. I can't even remember the results of that.
And it was Munster losing.
A couple of years ago, I would have definitely tuned in.
Yeah, exactly.
Losing their home record was obviously
it was, but it wasn't like it was fair. It wasn't a bad Munster side, and it wasn't a bad Leinster side. They're all good players, and they're all part of it. It's become a 50-60 man game almost over the course of rugby season. But I do think O'Gara is right.
I don't have an issue in a way though. Like Leinster are blooding players with such prospects in the future, and they can do that and give players game time and kind of bring them forward in their development.
Like it's something that Leinster seem quite happy. Like I think the provinces are quite happy to accept it, apart from the fact that Leinster are so much stronger than everyone else that they can rest so many. Like they even were able to rest half the World Cup squad for the first game of the Interpros and half them for this one, and they'll still pitch up with a pretty strong team full of internationals at home at the RDS tomorrow. Like it's a catch-22. I mean, if you don't give them a rest, you end up with, like, you know, in Australia for a 3-test series with all your players injured. You know, I think it has to be on the table. Everything has to be on the table after that World Cup. So it's one of the things that has to be on the table. But like the decisions were all these plans were put in place way before. So I don't think they were ever going to change it. But would Irish rugby be better for full-blooded Interpros all the time? From a competitive point of view, yes. Would it be good for the health of the players coming into the Six Nations? Would it cause injury? Maybe, but would it be more battle hardened? That's the kind of balancing.
Are you worth losing one or two to have everybody battle hardened?
Well, if the squads are as deep as certainly Leinster squad is as deep as they look, you know, like I think they've, you know, well, maybe it is worth it. You know, maybe that's the price you pay, and you know, like it's the eternal thing of, do you sack off Six Nations for a World Cup down the line, or do you trust your depth? I mean, do you say, right, we can afford to lose one or two and then press into it? These are decisions that are being made by Jason Cowman, the head of strength and conditioning in the RFU, Nusafora, the overseer of it all, and Andy Farrell, and they're kind of making these decisions in tandem with each other. This is the way Irish rugby has done it for the last couple of years. It obviously, I don't know, was it too late for the World Cup review to take it out? I mean, Andy Farrell was hard professional in his time in rugby league. Like, he was man of steel in the English rugby league for twice in his career, which I think you don't earn easily. So he knows the value of being battle hardened. He knows what it takes to get through a season. He was a proper hard professional, and if he's looking at it going, we need to protect these players, you got to respect that as well. But I do think that I think that the spectacle would have benefited. I think from a competitive point of view, we would have benefited. But whether Ireland would have gotten through the Paris on March, whatever date it is, with as many players fit, I'm not sure. But, you know, is cotton wool the right thing? These are the questions.
We asked the same question in racing. That album photo goes to Cheltenham on the back of a Nick and Spoon race, with all due respect to the race at Tramore. But he goes in fresh, whereas then should he have a battle-hardened campaign and be kind of more ready for jumping fence at speed? But it's funny, we were talking earlier about when we only had like the 2 channels or the 6 channels at home, and I do remember Andy Farrell playing rugby league on Saturdays, and it was on like ITV or whatever it was. Yeah. But to think
they never lost that weekend team, as far as I could tell.
Yeah, and like I do remember Andy Farrell was the player that constantly popped up. I'm intrigued by how it's going to work out with Ireland. From your perspective, how different is he to Schmidt? Like, Schmidt, obviously, that hard kind of, you know, all about the regimental nature of the team. And with Dave Carney's comments, I think that Ireland will be more expansive. How do we call this? What's he like as a personality from your perspective?
We get a very... he's very different. He's very much... like, Schmidt was very... I don't think he's as controlling as Joe Schmidt. I think every head coach has...
He couldn't take over that Irish tear and ape what Schmidt did, because I think the players probably need a release as well.
Yeah, I think one of the benefits that he has is that he was there for last 3 seasons of Joe Schmidt's time in charge, and he was there to learn from one of the best coaches in the world. And no doubt he did.
And the bad.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, he would have seen the World Cup and the control and the increase of pressure over and over again, and the focus on small stuff. Like what I always, you know, would have worried about with Joe over time was the fact that he sweat the small stuff all the time. He gets so annoyed with something that was written in a paper or something that was said about a referee or little decisions that it would just eat at him inside, and he'd waste energy, and he'd spend time in meetings talking about it with players, and you're like, that's not a good use of energy. I mean, he had 24 hours with the players last week. I mean, the reports are good. He brought the families in at the end. You know, it all sounds good. He's also worked alongside Eddie Jones, Warren Gatland, Stuart Lancaster. He's picked up little bits off all of them.
It's an incredible array of talents.
He's also been an unbelievable player over his time, but he's never been the main man who's had to make the big decisions. He's already made one or two. You know, they were fairly, like, you know, leaving Rob Kearney out, I think, was, while he's a great servant to Irish rugby, it's an easy one to justify to yourself, and I don't think it was. I'm sure it was a tough conversation, because I wouldn't say Rob Kearney took it lying down. I think the bigger decisions are coming, but in terms of, he's a very different character, and he doesn't give a huge amount of himself away. Like I thought the stuff from his press conference was quite guarded, quite reasonably cagey.
Yeah,
he's great in the week of a match. He's a real, like, if you're trying to write back pages, he'll come in with a message and he'll deliver. You've probably seen his I don't know if you've seen his lines, speeches, like they're real. He's well able to stand in front of a room and deliver messages. He's less likely to go into the intricacies of why you go for John Cooney over Conor Murray. I think he kind of shies away from that stuff.
Which is fair enough.
Yeah, it is. But he'll also come into the room. I remember coming into the room during one of the windows last year, and we asked him about Jordan Larmour, and he just went, Jordan Larmour is now ready to be one of the best players in the world, and this is why. Schmidt would never do that. He'd start talking about Craig Gilroy, and he'd start talking about players that we haven't even heard of that are coming through the system. And he'd eventually come around to Larmour and say, Larmour has a lot of work to do. And, you know, in the 16th minute of the second half last week, he actually took, you know, he stepped off his left when he should have stepped off his right.
More of a Jim Gavin style.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Farrell will come out, maybe, when he wants to back a player and give a player confidence, he'll back that player. So there's that's, and again, you end up defaulting to the media stuff.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes, it's hard to say.
I'm asking you some tough questions here, but
he's more of an armour on the. I'd say he's more of an armour on the shoulder.
Well, Schmidt wasn't, presumably, or at least, you know, he was like the principal of the school that you had respect for, and you performed.
And the head prefects might have got the armour on the shoulder behind closed doors in those leadership meetings.
It's a beautiful analogy.
The head prefects were, well, you started, Johnny, in fairness,
because the head prefects were looked on.
And that's that group that I think. That's that group that I think needs to be maybe a little bit broken up and just integrate it back into the squad. I think there needs to be more of a flat system, and that's what happened in New Zealand. Although, you know, they obviously beat Ireland but didn't beat England. But what they did in the last year under Kieran Reid was they went away from being, you have to earn your stripes in this environment, and became, you come in, as soon as you come in, you're an All Black, and you've got a voice, and I think that has to be there as well. So, like, James Ryan's voice needs to be equally as important as Johnny Sexton's voice. Equally, Will Connors, the newest man of the squad, or Caelan Doris. They might be 21, 22. They need to be given their head as well. So I think it needs to be flatter structure.
I know you're a big Gaelic Games fan, so you have the option of staying in for the Gaelic Games chat if you so desire.
Is there room for me?
Oh, absolutely. There's always. Before you go though on the rugby, my cat. So this is the I suppose it's the dark horse element of this team. What's he going to bring? And like as a real, like, you're kind of, there's a lot of guesswork going on in terms of how the Cat-Farrell dynamic's going to work, I suppose.
Well, I think Cat and Farrell would have worked quite a lot on...
Cat and Farrell sounds really good.
Cat and Farrell.
I think they would have worked quite a lot on the England attack ahead of the 2015 World Cup under Lancaster. And I think what we see with Leinster is probably what we're going to see from Ireland over time. That kind of more of a heads-up game, more of a you know, less of a set, like, you know, there'll be a set-piece structure, but once you get through that, it's not just settling into bam, 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 and then box kick. It's going to be, and that's probably reducing Joe Schmidt's game plan a little bit more than they should. But I think they'll try and play through the phases a little bit more. They'll have more in their locker for that. They'll be, this phrase I hate it, but comfortable in chaos. That they'll be able to deal with whatever comes a little bit better. I think he tried to do that with Italy, but he didn't have the players. That England team were attacking really well until they got to that World Cup and just got lost in the pressure of that World Cup. I remember being there for the World Cup warm-up against Ireland, and they were phenomenal. Now, they had unbelievable pace on the wings. So he's a bit unknown quantity. Again, a bit like but Farrell does. I think Farrell, he's not going to be in charge of the defence in the same way he was. Easterby's going to be doing a lot of that. So I think Farrell will have a big say. I think we'll see a lot more of Saracen style as well, where you know, there's kind of going to be a front line with Sexton or Carby operating behind it and picking their moments to come through and do it. You know, players, forwards passing the ball out the back to where the backs have a bit more space. But it's going to take time, and you know, I don't think it's all going to work perfectly well against Scotland in a couple of weeks' time. It's going to take a little bit of time.
We'll be back after the ads. Will Ruaidhri O'Connor be here? You'll have to wait and see.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio. They spoke about your arm not being down beside your side. I mean, this is not Irish dancing.
OTB Sports Radio.
Basketball would have been my main game.
The brand new sports radio station from Off the Ball.
That's my point. Don't play for us if you're a proud Englishman.
Now broadcasting 24 hours a day. Live on the Go Loud app, Alexa.
You have a whole new world of possibilities.
Google Home, tune in, and offtheball.com/radio.
This is OTB Sports Radio.
The Sport Ireland campus Blanchardstown is the home of Irish sport, not just for our athletes, but for you and the community. For families, check out our kids' camps, sport academies and birthday parties. For adults, why not join our newly refurbished gym with a 50-metre swimming pool, or book one of our world-class indoor or outdoor facilities, including our athletics track, sports pitches and courts. And for companies, check out our team building days, conference facilities and events. All this and more at sportirelandcampus.ie.
OTB AM.
Yeah, look, I suppose our last two All-Ireland campaigns, we've been faced with, equally as formidable a task, and Culla in our first campaign, and then we had Na Piarsaigh, and now we have Ballyhale, so we're well used to these type of challenges. Ballyhale's probably the most difficult of the three to date, or the two to date. So huge underdogs, but look, for a Derry club to be here for the third time in 4 years is massive progress for us. So we just take care of our own business, and look, we'll see where that takes us in the 5th.
And is that huge potential reward of getting to a first All-Ireland Club hurling final if you were to get a victory?
There is, when you get to the last 4, that's always the incentive to try and make that last 2. Anything can happen on final day, but Ballyhale are the aristocrats of this competition. A Kilkenny club versus a Derry club. We all know the tradition and the expectations that are attached to that stereotype. So as a hurling club, we've grown astronomically over the last 7-8 years. We've surpassed even our wildest expectations. So we look forward to the task. I think at the very least we've got to a level now that we're very competitive against the top clubs in Ireland. If someone had offered us that 7-8 years ago, we'd have taken their hand off. So it's a step-by-step process. We'll give Ballyhale the full respect, and our preparations are going relatively well. So that's all we can control. Go out and give it our best, and just be excited to see where that takes us.
This is class, really. Sambo McNaughton against Tommy Walsh, and a giant-killing potential Derry against Kilkenny.
Antrim against Kilkenny. Two Laker Gales kind of going up against each other. Yeah, Tommy obviously has gone on this unbelievable run with Tullaroan. They look kind of unstoppable at the moment. They beat Sir Kieran from Offaly in the Ulster final, outstanding performance. And Sambo's over in Avena, who won the Ulster final in a 1-0 penalty shootout win over Owen Rua. So there was 9 penalties in a row missed.
Sambo cushioned all, man, was he?
Sambo's cushioned all, yeah.
There's some great footage online about him just hurling with his kids and what hurling means in the Glens of Antrim and so forth. But is there any chance of an upset?
It's very, very unlikely. Sambo's son Shane was mixing acting and hurling there for a while, and he was in what was he in? He was in some big English drama anyway a couple of years ago, which coincided with the All-Ireland Club final. It was mad, yeah.
We're talking through the 5 standout stories now from the AIB GAA Club semi-finals this weekend. What a weekend we have in store. First of all, Michael, bullet points for you. Can Borrisoleigh keep the dream alive?
They can. It'll be an interesting game against Thomas's. Borrisoleigh hadn't won a county title in 33 years. Then within the 1 month they won a county title and a Munster title with Brendan Matter delivering one of the great performances you'll ever see, one of the greatest club performances. Going to be a really tight game. Their last 5 games they've won by 1 score.
Unbelievable.
So, tight games. If it's a tight game, they stand an outstanding chance, yeah.
Big weekends for Mick Fennelly and Johnny Kelly.
It's a mad weekend, really. Mick Fennelly is managing Offaly on Saturday in the Kyo Cup semi-final in Burr. Johnny Kelly is a selector with him. Then Mick Fennelly's playing centre-back and captain for Ballyhale the next day against Schlockneil, where they're heavy favourites, and Johnny Kelly is managing Borrisoleigh. So the two of them could meet in the final, which would just be unbelievable.
Without kind of getting overboard and all that, Michael Duignan at the helm in Offaly, Fennelly coming in. You've a good football manager. Could it be an okay year for the faithful?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot more optimism anyway. I will say that most of the lads that should have went into the hurling panel are gone into the hurling panel. Yeah, there's a lot of optimism around. There's a lot of change going on in the background with Dignan at the moment as well. So yeah, hope springs eternal. All right.
He's getting married as well, is he?
Yeah, he got engaged. I think before the Offaly County Convention. And then got a nice engagement present of getting chairman.
Yeah.
What more do you want?
What more do you want?
First year of marriage. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I'll be out nearly every night.
It's like, got married, got engaged, everything's going well. Like, you know. Corofin 9-3 in a row. Can they be stopped?
They're going to be hard stopped. The only thing, they're playing Nemo at the weekend, and when it comes to club traditions, Nemo have an unbelievable tradition. But 2 years ago, Corofin absolutely battered them in the club final. They annihilated them and scored one of the greatest goals you will ever see as regard team goals. It's been a bit stop-start this year, but it has often been that case until they get to this kind of stage, and they tend to flourish at this stage. Nemo will definitely have revenge in their minds, but Corofin could be the first club to ever do an All-Ireland 3 in a row, which would be outstanding.
Rudd's Dublin love is obviously well established, but Ballyboden St Enda's obviously on the other side of the draw. What's going to happen?
Ballyboden have just this unbelievable knack of always finding a way. They're not particularly flashy. I think they were one of the most surprising All-Ireland club winners a couple of years ago. I don't think anybody really saw it coming. They were just eking out results. They eked out a result against Portlaoise in the Leinster final. They eked out a result against the Carlow champions Éire Óg in this year's final in awful conditions as well. They just seem to always find a way. They're playing Kilcoo, managed by Mickey Moran, who just seems to have the Midas touch wherever he goes. Ballyboden will probably just find a way as they invariably do.
Tommy v Sambo.
Yeah, that's really exciting one. That's on Saturday in Parnell Park. The intermediate.
If you weren't at much for the day, what a nice thing to go. Like, great place to watch a game of hurling as well.
It is. It's close.
Even in January.
It's a horrible place to play. I always found it like it was an absolute graveyard. We just couldn't get a win going up there any time. It just was a bit of like, it was like hurling's Galatasaray going up there. We just never.
Welcome to hell.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, that's
Johnny
what we
Carney.
always considered it. Hell and Johnny Carney. Yeah. But that'll be an interesting game on Saturday.
I know it's tight, but it looks like a decent.
The Galway Dublin game this year, as much as it was an absolute disaster in terms of the atmosphere, I absolutely loved it. Packed Parnell Park compared to 25,000 in Croker or whatever.
Hard bet the provincial ground when everybody is in on top of you like that. We just it could be a lovely.
You
ground.
were no good. You had nothing to do with the venue. You were no good.
I'm getting like a counselling session here.
Welcome to OTB Counselling. But we have to get to your piece on. Now, this is a controversial piece, MV. The GAA training, it stars for the AFL. You're talking about the mark as being like almost a precursor to the likes of McShane going off now to Australia. Rod, I'm not sure about this article now. I think it may have no bearing whatsoever on the AFL judgment of players, but play the devil's advocate here, Michael.
Yeah, I tell you what, Carl McShane had an unbelievable summer last year. But if from an
your piece to the camera there.
From an AFL point of view, if you were looking at signing Carl McShane at some stage in the last year or two, the game you would have looked at was probably not a championship game last year. It was probably the Dublin game in the league. Yeah, or a couple of other games where he made outstanding marks. He was playing inside as a kind of a lone full forward, and he was just basically illustrating and highlighting all the skills that an AFL player would want. He's got unbelievable skills. He's obviously high fielding. He's able to field amongst a body of players, 2 or 3 lads. He's just very, very smart at getting into positions where he can take that 20 or 30 yard kick pass. And I kind of just think it's foolish. I don't think anybody was calling for this advance mark or the attacking mark to be called in. If they were, I didn't see it, or I didn't hear anyone talking about it. Yeah, they kind of skated in at Special Congress last October, nearly 69%. And now it's a seismic change to the game.
What do you make of Rhodes?
I quite like it actually. I hadn't. Again, it's laws.
Get high
the laws of unintended. Well, it's trying to get more directness and less dilly-dallying around the 14.
Less hand pass.
Let it in, like I mean. And I think obviously not aimlessly, but you're looking for that's. And I think during the league, although Dublin didn't adapt to it at all, like Gavin just sacked it off. He said this isn't going to be a championship, so why would I bother? Other teams did it and did it quite effectively against Dublin, and it's kind of given Dublin struggles in the full back line. Their one weak point, it seems like something that actually could trip them up in the end. But the law of unintended consequences is that it's almost setting players up for AFL, and McShane is not the profile of player that the AFL have been picking up for the last couple of years.
He's
so
he's not that young, so it's
what I mean.
kind
Like
of,
they've been getting minors and lads like Jack Madden out of Dublin. I interviewed Conor Glass and Conor Nash over in Melbourne when I was there with Ireland a couple of years ago, and they were recruited right out of minor, right out of school. You know, that was kind of the profile of player that they were kind of going for, to try and get them in and get them trained in the skills of the game. It'll be very difficult for Micheal to actually make it if he's gone over 23, even though he's got the skills. He's playing catch up against players who've been doing this for a lot longer.
And it's not like you go over and you get the grips straight away. Arthur O'D had a piece with Marty Clark, obviously the former Down excellent footballer. There it is on screen. He says, "I'll be surprised if the AL recruiters even notice a GAA rule change, MV."
Interesting, yeah. It's interesting. I was chatting to Conor McKenna, who was actually a teammate with Cotton McShane in 2013. Tyrone team got to the All-Ireland final. And he kind of said that skills aren't the issue. He said the main issue is usually homesickness. And
really?
Yeah, that's what he said. He's a home bird. And he said, if you look at the stats, it's usually nothing to do with their skills. It's to do with the fact that they have pangs for home and they want to come home. And he said, he was basically saying that the homesickness is the biggest thing. So if you take the average, I would say, with the likes of McShane or guys that are a bit older, and homesickness is the major problem, and you pull that outside and you bring in WhatsApp and Skype and different things and how you're able to communicate with home a lot better.
It's a long way. I mean, if you think of the Premier League example of young Irish players going over,
they're an hour in a flight away.
They're an hour in a flight, but it's like a different world. I mean, you've interviewed countless of them that just found it so hard over there. You're living, like, you're in amongst a load of lads. I mean, McShane's different because he's older. You presume he's going into a wider squad or playing second team in the kind of regional leagues, of the VFL, I think it's called. You'd imagine that's where he'll learn his trade. But that's a tough league. That's in against hardened pros who are either coming up or coming down. So that's going to be a tough one. You're going to be away from the glamour. He's not going to walk into the MCG in front of 80,000 people. But he's also up against players from all over the world. They might not notice the rule changes. They've a really aggressive policy of going after athletes from around the world who are suited to the game. So, at the game, we went along to see on the Queen's birthday. He was in Melbourne against Collingwood, and the best player on the pitch was a Texan who only took, he was a high school football star who didn't quite make it, as an NFL player, but he got recruited in. Apparently, it was the only good game he's had. He's been rubbish since he got there, but he's 6'9" or something, and he was unbelievable. So, that's what you're not just up against the best of Australia who've been playing this game. It's like schools. Australian rules is like schools rugby in Australia. Like at the school, I went to see Gonzaga against St Kevin's in Melbourne, and it was like being in Donnybrook, except for they were playing Aussie rules.
Wow.
So there's a culture there of players coming through. So you're going in against these guys who've been playing at this unbelievable level, being trained for 10 years. It's going to be very difficult for them.
We got to wrap up. What a disaster for Tyrone, though.
Yeah.
It's an absolute
Like, if you're looking at Dublin could be anyway vulnerable this year, Tyrone at least beat them sometime last year, beat them in Croke Park. They'll think we've some chance. This is an absolute disaster. But
to me, they're not even realistic contenders.
Well, they certainly are now anyway.
They're not. They don't come into.
They need to get rid of Mickey Hart. Surely, at this stage. Bloody hell, Michael.
Tumbleweed.
They do, yeah. I would agree, Johnny.
On the fence again. Like Rory can stay for the GAA anymore. By the way, before you go, who's going to win the out half battle tonight? Very, very quickly. One word.
The scrum half battle.
The scrum half battle tonight, Ruther.
I mean, how do you even gauge that?
It's got to be Cooney. On current form?
On current form, Cooney's in better form, yeah.
That game is tonight, and thanks for coming in on the GAA. We won't keep you for the rest of the show, but our next slot is Deal or No Deal. Phil Egan will be joining us in the studio. First of all, this is a bit of a mad story from David Meyler, who was on commentary duty for Off the Ball last evening.
I'll ask you this question, considering you grew up together and you were so close, and he was playing right midfield and you were playing centre midfield, and you grew up such a massive Liverpool fan. Has any part of you ever been jealous of what he's done at this club?
No. And I if you know me, and the people who know me, know I couldn't be happier for him, because there's a lad who deserves it. There's enough fellas who've done well that you think, you know what, right, you've cut corners. He's not. He's really done well to get where he is. And I remember I was on the phone to him that time when Brendan Rodgers came to see him and told him, look, we want you to go to Fulham, part of a deal for Clint Dempsey. I was on the phone to him, and I heard him going, I'm not going. You know, and
you were on the phone when the conversation was happening.
Yeah, the door. He knocked on the door and whatever, and Jordan never hung up the phone, and I didn't hang up.
What?
Yeah.
What?
That's it.
You
that's
didn't
a
hit
story.
the record button, did you?
No, it's a story for a different day. But he was like, no, I'm not going anywhere, and he was like, well, you're not really wanting to play, and he was like, I'm not bust. I will play, and lo and behold, Brendan was the one who made him captain.
And when that phone conversation continues, so he stood up to Brendan Rodgers and said, no, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, because he firmly believed.
But he firmly believed. But also, that must be a huge dent to your confidence that the manager has just told you, you know what, I know you're a good lad, but you're not going to play. I want you to leave the club. As much as you might think I'm good enough, the manager telling you you're not. Like, that must be bloody difficult to get over in those first few days.
It is, yeah, it's difficult. But that's a test of his character, the type of person he is. You know, he came through all that. You know, and he came on then to captain Liverpool to their 6th Champions League.
And they understand everyone dislikes us, and I like that. So my message to the rest of the league is, if you don't like it, go get your own.
It can be a good time to have a new challenge.
Yeah, it's time for Deal or No Deal. Phil, honestly, when you wear that top, do you, like someone hasn't met you before wearing that top, is it always, oh, that reminds me of...
Dennis Priestley, yeah.
That's
Dennis Priestley, yeah.
I've no follow-on question.
Dennis Priestley, one of 4 players to win BDO and PDC.
There you go.
Yeah, because I know there's been a lot of BDO talk in this studio.
There has.
I hope no alarms go off today.
There'll be a lot of BO talk the way it's going. But yeah. We'll start off.
Yes.
Definitely be that. Phil Egan is in studio, everyone, with MV here for the rest of the show, which is we don't have long left. We have 10 minutes or so to shoot through this. Phil, of course, beaming after Liverpool's 2-0 win over Sheffield United last night. We're going to start off this morning with some Manchester United updates, and if there's one thing better for a Liverpool fan than their own amazing form, it's engaging in schadenfreude about how shit Man United are. We told you yesterday that Ole said he wanted 2 midfielders. This morning, the Independent say Phil is Jack Grealish, 24, who is off the charts at the moment, and Leicester's James Maddison, 23, are the club's 2 top targets in this window. I can't disagree with either of those. But Phil, will either or both be Man U players by the end of this window? And how much is the former ROI underage star Jack Grealish worth in today's market, and given the situation Villa are in?
There's absolutely zero chance either player will join Manchester United this month.
What?
Why would James Maddison leave Leicester at the moment?
But Grealish?
Grealish, no.
No?
Villa are in serious trouble of being relegated, but Grealish wouldn't abandon them in January. I think
he cares a bit about Villa. I actually think he does care.
Absolutely,
I think he wants
loves
them to stay up.
This is his dream to play for Villa. You know, he grew up a Villa fan, and here he is. He's their main player.
Who did he score against?
There's a picture of him there. He scored against Burnley. There's a picture of him there, but what's been left out of the picture is his unbelievable calves.
Yeah, that's why he wears the socks down so low. The goal against Burnley, what I hadn't seen the goal and it came on a highlights. What I absolutely loved about it, he turned on to his right and you're like, oh, here we go, top corner. But instead he went near post top corner, and the keeper cannot predict that. So it was like, if you're the defender, you're like, I'm predicting that any average player is going to do this. He's so full of confidence.
Yeah, he's quality. So if Villa are
more than Rice.
But if Villa are, oh, absolutely. But we won't get into that conversation.
We don't have time.
But if Villa are going to stay up, it's going to be down to Jack Grealish. So there's no way they would sell him. If you're in the buyer's market, then you're looking at Jack Grealish and you're thinking, do we sit this one out and wait till the summer? Because if Villa do go down, then Grealish's value is diminished because he's playing for a championship club again. They need to sell if they want to make money. And not that they want to sell him.
He's not going to stay in Championship.
He's not going to stay in Championship.
Are they writing off their Premier League if they get rid of him if he's gone in January?
Yeah,
it'd be massive. It would basically be waving the white flag to say, we're done here. They're already in trouble because in the last few minutes we've just found out that Tom Heaton is out for the season, Wesley's out for the season as well. So Heaton is a huge loss for him because he's a very solid goalkeeper.
Moving on to ESPN, they say Emre Can of Juve, 25, and Newcastle midfielder Sean Longstaff, 22, are also on Ole's wish list. We'll monitor those situations.
Yeah, like Longstaff was something that was a player they were linked with during the summer, and there was talk of 50 million, which seemed ridiculous money because he only really broke into the Newcastle team last season. Obviously his brother has broken into the team this season as well, scored in both games against United as well, but I don't know if they're really the players.
Forget about Chan Longstaff. How much is Grealish worth?
Grealish, I would say at this particular moment in time
at the football club,
I would
Kenny's
say
probably gone back to bed. I'd say Kenny Cunningham. Yeah. I wanted to know what his movie was last night. He was watching a movie with his son, just couldn't get to it. He just ignored the question.
Yeah, I actually, when I heard the question, I was interested because he would have given a review of the film.
Any if you're listening?
I'd say with Grealish, you're looking at
50,
maybe
60?
40 to 50 million sterling.
I'm with you on that. There's more Man United questions here. Moussa Dembele is a Man United target. A French outlet reports that Chelsea have made a 40 million bid, but it's been rejected by Lyon. What kind of impact would Dembele have in the PL?
Yeah, no, he'd be quality. Obviously, we saw him playing for Celtic after he moved from Fulham. And
great name as well.
Yeah,
Moussa Dembele.
And now the fact that Moussa Dembele has left Tottenham, there's room for another Moussa Dembele in the Premier League.
There is. Would you call a child Moussa, Michael, if you had one? Moussa Verney?
No, but I would like to see Moussa Dembele like Davis Love the third or Moussa Dembele the second. You know, that would have been nice.
Have there ever been any darts equivalents where they've...
No, not that I'm aware of, no.
On the other side of the Manchester United ledger, I'm actually getting bored of this Paul Pogba stuff. His future remains unclear. The Express reports that the club is willing to sell him to Real Madrid in the window if they will fork out 150 to 160 million. Do you believe that Pogba will go or stay until the end of the season? What percentage chance do you have of winning a Champions League in the next 5 years? And we want a number here. I don't think anyone is paying 150 million for Pogba.
If they are, United are...
Go.
They're helping them pack.
I take 80
We'll clear
million
out your locker for you. Come on.
They need to get rid anyway. We want a number here, though. What percentage chance does Paul Pogba have of winning a Champions League in the next 5 years? I mean, any algorithm would work that one out for you.
Well, it depends who he's playing for. But if he's
we want a number here. Come on, Phil.
We'll
You're here to cut to the chase. Deal or no deal.
Yeah, because he's never won a Champions League. So we're thinking, and he's got to the final with Juventus. So if he's going to go to... I'd say I'm going to go...
It's an easy question.
It's not really.
No, it's very hard.
I'm going to say 60%.
Michael?
Would anyone that's really in contention for Champions League want him at this stage?
Do you know what? He's one of these players that if he plays at a team that's going well, Paul Pogba would be great for him.
I'd love to see him at Liverpool at the moment. It obviously is a hypothetical of all hypotheticals. Throw him into that Liverpool team for the last 6 months of the season.
You think he could basically balls up the season for Liverpool?
Aston Villa are desperate to reinforce their attack after Wesley's injury. According to a number of UK outlets, he suffered a serious knee injury against Burnley on New Year's Day. Olivier Giroud and Batshuayi are the top targets. Can either player save Villa? And do you see either making the move to Birmingham?
If they were going to sign one, they should go for Batshuayi. But he's ahead of Giroud at Chelsea in the pecking order. Unless Chelsea sign another striker, I can't see them letting Batshuayi go because he seems to be next when Tammy Abraham is either taken off or he's rested for a game. Batshuayi gets a run out. So Giroud would be a more realistic target, but I would be thinking if Villa want to stay up, they need a player of like Batshuayi rather than Giroud.
I think Giroud at Villa though he'd do a really good job. Like you know what you're going to get with him.
Bit of a battering ram.
Yeah, but Giroud. If Giroud had pace, he could have been a really good player.
I remember watching him against Ireland at the Euros, and I know it was Griezmann that got the goals, but Giroud gave Shane Duffy and Richard Keogh an awful time that day. Just so physical.
We're coming towards the end of this sequence. It is Spurs' last chance to make some cash on Eriksen. His contract expires at the end of the season, having been linked with Manchester United and Inter. There are now reports to be in the hunt as well. We spoke a lot about on the slot this summer. If Ole had snapped him up in August, what impact would he have had on Manchester United's season? So it's not like what's going to happen in the future, but what would have happened in the past. Bit of a Scott Bakula quantum leap type thing.
I think if he was in the team from the start of the season, say for United, hypothetically, you're looking at...
No number 10.
No, and they're still only a few points off fourth place. 5 points off, off Chelsea.
Fifth,
so there's a good chance that they'd actually be maybe not ahead of Chelsea, but certainly closer if they had Eriksen for those games where they've lacked
guile,
a creative spark. Games against, say, we saw them lose against Watford. Obviously, the game against Arsenal the other night, they weren't great either. So he's definitely a player that would improve United drastically, given what's in midfield for them. They played with Matic and Fred the other night.
I know, I couldn't believe that. Two iconic jerseys with the black and red. Inter Milan come to mind, Bohemians, the stripes. Anyone with the horizontal stripes, football teams?
I'm thinking, do you know what? Remember the old Newcastle jersey?
The away kit?
Remember it was a little bit kind of similar. But Brazilian team.
Okay.
What's the Brazilian club team that play in the Dennis de Menace colours?
We'd welcome any 53102 if we... Flamengo. No?
No, I
Tommy
think
Rooney's not sure.
I think that's...
Aubameyang, 30, has reaffirmed his commitment to Arsenal and cool talk of an exit in the window. That's a situation we will be monitoring.
Yeah, because there was talk last week of Barcelona, and we talked about whether he'd be good enough to play for Barcelona. He certainly would, but it seems like Arteta's obviously given them
Flamengo, by the way.
Yeah.
Can we get that jersey up?
It seems that with Arteta coming in, he's obviously impressed a few of the players.
Come on, Jojo, we have a minute and a half here. Get that jersey up, the
We'll
Flamingo
just,
jersey.
keep filling time till we get this Flamingo jersey for all the people that are listening that actually can't see.
I didn't know Aubameyang was 30, to be fair. It's like, just you wouldn't think he was that old.
He still has the pace, though. That's a good sign, you know.
Final question. Arsenal have inquired about Atletico Madrid and French winger Thomas Lemar, 24, according to Marca. Would that be a good move?
Can he play centre half?
That's what they need.
They need centre halves, and there's an issue with fullback because they obviously have two good fullbacks in Bellerin and Tierney, but they're injured at the moment. But they need centre halves. Lemar would be.
They were so insipid the other night they didn't even test him that right.
No.
Can I just ask one question? All these rumours about Manchester United. Will Ollie still be there at the end of January, percentage, and will he still be there in the summer?
He shouldn't be there at the end of January. He shouldn't be there at the end of the summer. The worry for United is that if they hold on to Solskjaer, they're going to get games where, say, for example, now they're playing Liverpool in a few weeks. Don't be surprised if they take something from Liverpool in that game. They'll have moments where they look brilliant, but they'll have so many bad moments as well. If they hold on to Solskjaer, that's what's going to keep happening. But also, if they miss out on someone like Pochettino, imagine Guardiola decides at the end of this season, I'm done, and City go and recruit Pochettino.
Yeah.
That would be just, again, United would have missed the boat.
This jersey is a thing of absolute beauty. That is the Flamingo jersey. Thing of beauty. That's it for Deal or No Deal. Thank you, Phil.
If I could get one of those.
I like that.
And they understand everyone dislikes us, and I like that. So my message to the rest of the league is, if you don't like it, go get your own.
It can be a good time to have a new challenge.
Yeah, if anyone wants to buy me a New Year's present, I'm on the market for a football jersey that looks exactly like that. That's the 2018 Flamingo home jersey. It may have actually updated since then. That's all for this morning. Thanks very much, Michael, for coming in.
No bother, Johnny. And we got through a whole show without any Only Fools and Horses reference, so I feel like I have to mention it here at the end.
Yeah, what are we going to say?
I don't know. I just thought it was hilarious when Kenny Cunningham kept calling you John.
John, yeah.
John.
Cockney expression, no, I mean. That's us all from Friday's Off the Ball AM. Thanks very much for joining us. OTB AM, Ireland's only sports morning radio show. Friday Night Racing is coming up at 3 p.m. later today. I'll be in with Tom Malone, and Off the Ball will be back on your radios tonight from 7 p.m. Subscribe to the OTB AM podcast, where you will see Phil wearing this top over and over and over and over again over the next few months. It's fully timestamped, make it easy to find exactly what you want from every morning's to our show. And do remember, it is Ireland's first and only sports breakfast show. If you missed anything this morning, what did they miss, Michael?
A lot of BDO talk, anyway.
A lot of BDO talk. A lot of BOBS and BDO talk. The sports pages, Football with Kenny Cunningham. Kenny was very strong on the Ireland managerial pay situation. David Meyler, Nathan Murphy, and Adam Lallana. Rory and GAA with Ruaidhri O'Connor. Deal or No Deal and our GAA discussion as well. You'll find it on the podcast, also on YouTube, or you can just cast us to your smart TV. Lots happening this weekend. What are you looking forward to, lads?
Not the FA Cup.
You?
Envoy Allen.
Envoy Allen, that's at Nason Sunday. Off the Ball AM is live on Saturday and Sunday from 1 p.m. Ger and Owen are back Monday morning from 7:30 a.m.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
The Saturday panel on Off the Ball.
There's a growing hostility